the everyday Hogwarts player. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 501 Krum. Viktor Krum, Bulgaria's star seeker and the ace of the Quidditch World Cup. A talented seeker who is only about 17 years old. He also has an additional identity, that is, as Ron, a loyal fan of the Chudley Cannons. He is the only Quidditch star from another team that he admires. However, Ron never introduced him to Harry further, such as showing Harry a picture of Krum. Maybe he knew Harry's skills were superior to Krum's. But because of his identity as Harry's friend, and the fact that he knew why Harry was so great, he couldn't really admire Harry. "You're so kind." "Hello, are you really 17 years old?" Harry turned his head and was about to say hello, but he was startled by Krum's mature face. A very gloomy face met Harry's gaze. When I first saw it, I thought it was a statue because there was so little expression on its face. It seems that the only movements he can make are blinking and frowning. In addition, Viktor Krum was dark and thin, with grayish-yellow skin, a big hooked nose like Snape, and two thick black eyebrows. He looked like a huge eagle. This made him look nothing like a 17-year-old boy. Ron was very dissatisfied, looked at Ron fiercely. As for Draco, he just watched the show from the sidelines, looking at Ron with amusement. "Hello, I hope you're not mad at Harry Potter for this. I look mature. That's one of my strengths." Krum had a gloomy face, but he seemed very reasonable. "Have disappeared. You are a student of Durmstrang, right?" Draco, who was watching coldly from the side, spoke. Sometimes when a person's eyes are dirty, he will see as dirty. And Draco was that kind of person. He thought Krum obviously wanted to get to know his rival, Harry, the only everyone in Hogwarts who was worthy of the title of warrior. In advance taking a photo, Draco spat and disdained. "Draco, I will protect Harry." Krum naturally had no idea what the pretty boy in front of him was thinking, but he also clearly realized that this guy seemed very dissatisfied with him, combined with his words. So Krum looked at Draco and frowned. "Are you dissatisfied with Durmstrang?" Draco once wanted to go to Durmstrang, but was rejected. Ron hurried to show himself in front of his idol. "Ron Weasley." Draco didn't know what to say. "Because if I were to be honest, it seemed even more embarrassing because my mother couldn't bear to be too far away from her. You're lucky to be in Hogwarts. The original Durmstrang was already corrupt enough, but I never thought it would be so corrupted." Krum still had a frown on his face. "You weren't angry just now." Ron looked at his idol in surprise, not get any good results, but he also offended Draco. "I didn't." Krum touched his face, as if wondering why others couldn't tell his emotions in the future, but the next second, he understood. "I told you, my face is deceiving. It's not just age, it's also my weapon when it comes to hiding my emotions." Krum wanted to laugh, but his frown deepened. "Then why do you hate Durmstrang? I mean, don't you go to school there?" Ginny asked. She didn't understand why anyone would hate their own school. "Why don't I buy you a drink and we can talk about something?" Krum hesitated for a moment and looked outside Flourish and Blots. "I've never seen a place like Diagon Alley. How can I put it? It's amazing. I met a charming, Ginny cleared her throat, a normal witch from Boxbuttons. She's here to buy books from Flourish and Blots," Harry asked. "And Ron, of course, do you want me to recommend a place for you? I'm not bragging, I can walk around Diagon Alley with my eyes closed. I am very familiar with it." As for Draco, his look became more serious. This Krum definitely has designs on Harry. First it aroused everyone's curiosity. Then he gave some sweet treat himself to something to eat. Finally, I subtly admire Diagon Alley, the pearl of the British wizarding world. What a sinister and cunning person he is. As he thought about it, Draco's eyes became sharp. "You can buy books at any time. I have a lot to say right now, which means I need a lot of ice cream. Have it. Florin's ice cream shop, I really liked their prison style. Don't think I need your recommendation." Krum looked at Ron. Ron looked very touched. "Look your idol in the eye and answer your own questions seriously." Draco couldn't help but turn his face away in disgust. Ginny turned directly to look at Harry, wanting to clear her eyes. "Okay then," Harry nodded, then looked at the iron cage that was originally the window. "Neville, let's go to Florin's ice cream shop first. We'll be waiting for you there." Amid the groups of students waiting in line for their copies of the Monster Book of Monsters, a thick, muscular hand stretched out. That was Neville, and he was saying he heard it. So 10 minutes later, in Florin's cold drink shop inside the crystal wall, Krum was eating ice cream in big mouths while talking to Harry and others. Before that man came to Durmstrang, our school's headmaster was Karkaroff. A jerk who only knows how to enjoy himself and do nothing all day long. I dare say he knows more about him white for robes than he does about Durmstrang. He just stays in the office all day, telling us to do this and that. Of course he doesn't dare to dominate me. On the contrary, he treats me very well because I'm famous. But the way he treats other students makes me sick. Last year, our principal was replaced by a new person. No, the headmaster is still Karkaroff, but the real person has been replaced by someone else. Krum said gloomily and wanted to take another big bite of ice cream, but the ice cream in his cup disappeared as fast as his mouth opened and closed. So he ordered another cup of blueberry orange jam ice cream. I just sent my parents back home today, so I'm a bit busy. There is one more chapter, I will post it later, I am coding it now. P.S. Thanks to Teishi Yumeksu for the monthly ticket and other classmates for the recommendation and subscription. Chapter 502 Strange Krum and the Potion and number 039, Dark Wizard and number 039. Harry had never met anyone so inconsistent. Even when he attacked others with heavy blows, Snape, who was submissive to Harry, always maintained his good quality of having a sharp tongue. But Krum, who initially appeared to be gloomy and taciturn, turned out to be so talkative. The ice cream seemed to have unleashed some potential in him, making him eloquent and talkative. After finishing the ice cream, I returned to being shy and cold as I was when we first met. Completely different person from before. This is bad. When Harry and the others were listening attentively and even Draco couldn't help but let go of his reserve and wanted to take out his notebook to write down Krum's words. Krum, stop talking again, it's better to shut up. Isn't he waiting for ice cream? Just look at the owner Florin. But Krum refused to do that. He kept staring at Harry and the others. It seems that flowers can be seen. What's worse is that he has a poker face and you can't tell whether he's happy or at all. Draco on the side was speechless. He felt that he was quite outrageous. How can you think of this guy as a scheming person? Judging from Krum's appearance, it might be better to say that he wanted to eat a few more cups of ice cream, then run away and let Harry and the others pay the bill. Lavender. So much so that his eyes became more and more strange. Ginny kept looking at Harry to ease the embarrassment. No matter how strange Krum's behavior was, it was nothing to her. Krum, who was considered the social leader was also experiencing everyone turbulent waves in his heart at this moment. The guy opposite him who claimed to be his friend kept staring at him with furry eyes. He was interested in learning more about Harry Potter. Damn. Merlin's beard. This guy's name is Ron Weasley. He likes men. Krum had to pretend to be calm. Hey. Ice cream is here. Florin waved his wand, and freshly baked blueberry orange jam ice cream flew in front of Krum. Except for Ron. Almost everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Krum, who is that person you are talking about? Harry asked hurriedly. That person. Krum took a bite of ice cream. The coldness of the ice cream and Harry's words brought him back to the state of mind in which he had just complained about Durmstrang. At this point, even if Ron took off all his clothes and danced ballet in front of him, he probably wouldn't be surprised. His name is Grindelwald. He killed many people in our country. My grandfather was one of them. Of course, he's never had much power in this country, and they say he's afraid of Dumbledore. Well said, look at his final end. But, the recent competition, I thought I was wrong. I saw with my own eyes that men and Dumbledore hugged each other warmly. Although Dumbledore looked repulsive, he still accepted it. Dumbledore. Accepted? How? Can this be possible? He is the greatest white wizard and the person Grindelwald fears the most. If even he, who else? Manager. Give me another ice cream, the same as before. Krum turned to look at the manager, tears flashing in the corners of his eyes. Harry and the others looked at each other, not knowing what to say. That Dumbledore was doing this for the greater good, to kill Voldemort? They were afraid that Krum would immediately change his attitude as soon as they said this. Harry, here I eat. Under the excited gaze of everyone, the hero Neville appeared. On the other side, there were clouds 10,000 meters above Smith Castle. Ryan lay on his side in a white cloud, holding a 93 iced Coke in his hand, his eyes half closed, and he read, Sequence 9 Magic Potion Dark Wizard, the user will have an extraordinary adaptability to the dark arts, a naturally evil mind, and be proficient in hundreds of evil spells, poison spells, and curses. The user can easily learn all kinds of dark magic, and there is no dark magic that is impossible to learn. As he finished speaking, a little black-haired girl with a doll-like hairstyle stuck her head out from behind him. "What are you talking about, little brat? There is no such magic potion in the world." This is Kate. Fleur and Penelope are both very moved and refuse to drink and have fun on the white clouds 10,000 meters above. Only Kate has the guts to do this. Ryan seemed to have expected Kate to post something. He took a sip of Coke and poured the ice cubes into his mouth. "I have started to chew them. Did you see the raw materials of this potion recently?" Kate frowned, then slapped the thick dragon leather book that she had placed aside and said, "The dark shadow of the mirror world." Bingo. Ryan snapped his fingers, and the sea of clouds not far away suddenly rolled up, leaving only a round hole. The scene in it was playing after Harry fainted in the boiler room. The invisible and intangible ocean of magic power turned into boiling red magma that gushed out from the boiler. The fainted Harry Potter and the red-skinned imp were like two small boats wandering in the magma sea. The scar on Harry Potter's left forehead seemed to absorb all the temperature given to this fragile body by the surrounding magma. It turned red and then the lightning-shaped scar suddenly cracked. Its edges and corners turned into snow-white, sharp animal fangs. The snow-white skull and milky white brain were no longer visible at the crack, only a long blood-red tongue dancing between the animal's fangs. Hot water. The red of the magma turned into the green of moss as the baby merged into it. The bubbles that were surging up gradually disappeared. The bloody mouth on Harry's forehead began to open and close, and the surrounding green liquid was slowly absorbed by it. Clouds closed again, and the picture disappeared. "Magma plus that little red monster is the dark wizard potion you mentioned." Kate also took a sip of 93 Coke to calm herself down. "I thought you were complaining about the mouth on Harry's forehead." Ryan rolled his eyes speechlessly. Then he continued, "Of course. Fake potion, requires herbs, insect corpses, animal livers, cauldrons to boil, and wands to stir. Real potions, magical evolution, guided by memory, and also, your technique cannot be promoted at all. I'm afraid no one else can do it except you." Kate curled her lips. Chapter 503. Before going out. "Really? I thought you'd find that cool. Don't you think that's very gothic? Similar to the style of your second favorite vampire costume." Ryan sighed. He doesn't need any promotion. He just wanted to show off in front of Kate. In order to make Kate feel involved in the game, I have specially transformed Harry's mutation after taking the potion into Kate's favorite monster to hunt in the game. Cut off his head? ? But Kate, like Penelope, thought about Ryan's method of making the potion and whether it should be promoted. "I'm 17. Do you think I will still act like a child?" Kate, who looked no more than 11 or 12 years old, raised her eyebrows and said dissatisfiedly. She knew that Ryan was treating her like a child again. Ryan didn't react, but looked at her with a teasing look. Shorthands and immediately understood something. He cleared his throat and said in a mature tone, "Why don't we talk about adult topics? Little brat, I just noticed that when you mentioned that potion, there was a strange prefix in front of it, sequence 9. Let me guess, sequence 9 is the most powerful potion. Next is sequence 8 and 71. As thieves to the criminals and dark wizards in the wizarding world." Ryan looked solemn and stunned. Kate laughed out loud when she saw this. "I guessed it right, little brat. Let's see how you continue to treat me like a child." Ryan regretfully acknowledged, "Well, you guessed it right, weird." Kate's smile froze. Ryan said with a wicked smile, Kate, I couldn't have guessed that you would guess all of them wrong even if I used my feet to think. My potions are ranked from largest to smallest, which means that the sequence 9 potion is the weakest. Also, this name has nothing to do with the name of a criminal. I named it this way only because Voldemort is a dark wizard." Just as Kate was about to explode, Ryan kept his mouth shut. After all, even a rabbit will bite when it is angry. What's more, Kate is already more prudent than an eagle eye. 10 minutes later, Kate regained her composure amid Ryan's constant sweet talk and the gossip he obtained through his almost random time travel. No one could connect a girl snuggling in Ryan's arms with a person who was so angry that she wanted to punch Ryan with her little fists. Just by hearing words like "come on" and "I want more," if you don't know, you would think they are having sex in broad daylight on the clouds. Let me tell you the last one. "Do you know how your father met your mother?" Ryan asked. Wow. Is this different from what I know? My dad said it was at Christmas dinner at Hogwarts. Mom approached him. Kate's eyes seemed to light up. I was so excited that I spoke all the Japanese I had learned. It was Christmas, indeed. Because it was your mother's birthday. It was indeed your mother who took the initiative, but she didn't do it to strike up a conversation, but to find fault. Ryan suppressed his smile and patted the cloud bed on the side. Tell me quickly. Why is it? Kate was so excited that she almost stuck to Ryan. Apparently this has something to do with birthday presents. In the relationship between your father and mother, it was your father who came up with the idea first. But when he delivered the gift, he gave the wrong one. Kate became even more excited when she heard this. Before Ryan could continue, she immediately asked, "Whose gift is this for my mother? What's wrong with my mother? How angry was she?" It was a Christmas present that was supposed to be a prank. Between Snape and James Potter, you can imagine how outrageous this prank is and how angry your mother is. What's worse is that your father's own name is on the gift. Ryan's mind kept replaying the miserable scene when Kate's mother opened the gift, and he laughed out loud. Kate was naturally even more curious. At least it's a curiosity that can't be solved by words alone. So Ryan played the scene at that time among the sea of clouds. Kate also took a few photos with her camera with a sly smile. Are you taking pictures? Ryan looked at Kate. I'm going to move out next year and do this. My parents can't stop me. Kate proudly raised the two photos in the hall. The photos show Kate's mother, who has an afro and a black face, and Kate's father, who is hit by multiple evil spells and has spring-like tentacles and feathers growing on her face. You're using this to threaten them. Ryan couldn't help but be a little surprised. These are her parents, and she actually, of course, if they don't agree, I will spread the photo throughout our village. Kate raised the photo again. Does this mean Kate will be living with me after she graduates next year? Thought of another question. Ryan, what happened to those Death Eaters recently? Are they still alive? I hope you won't get an upset stomach. Of course they are still alive. As long as Voldemort, the will of God, is still there, and as long as I didn't feed them the basilisk venom, they would not die for such a ridiculous reason. Do you want to watch the show again? Ryan smiled knowingly. During this summer vacation, because they were in Smith Castle and there were no outsiders, this resulted in them not playing mind games for a while. In addition, the show Harry Potter and the Other World was also cancelled. Penelope is fine, I just happened to be going out. I kind of neglected him. It seems that I can't be too partial to one and neglect the other. Ryan waved his hand, and the next second, the two appeared on Ryan's big pink bed. Who goes out to bed? Do you want to warm up first? Kate said this, but she saw her consciously shrinking into the quilt. Ryan, who wanted to change his clothes, thought it would be better not to take them off. Chapter 504 St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries. Lying on the pink princess bed, Ryan wiped the sweat off his face, pointed his wand at himself, and put on a plain black wizard robe. Kate's torn clothes on the ground were restored to their original state. Kate, on the other hand, was still curled up in the quilt, taking her time to put on her clothes. Ryan, where are we going? Going to the Longbottom house. Kate poked her little head out and looked at Ryan. Now I am no longer at the age where I can just go out wearing a lion puppet costume as a mature lady. You should choose your clothes according to where you are going. As for not having so many clothes on the bed, the newly repaired clothes were on the floor. This is not a problem for Kate. Ryan has installed an external space called CCU for them can hold several Smith castles. Just put some clothes in there. It couldn't be easier. Neville's birthday was just a while ago. I'm going to give him the best birthday present, although my gift is also very late. It should be much better than Harry and the others. Ryan raised his head confidently and straightened the corner of his clothes. St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries. Neville's parents. Kate frowned. What, you don't want to go? Ryan looked at Kate in surprise. From what he knew about Kate, even if the destination was Azkaban, as long as she should be happy. No, I thought you wanted Longbottom to do it himself. Didn't you say something like one sword can break all laws? Kate stretched out her bare left hand from under the quilt and pretended to swing a sword. Neville has never read a fantasy novel. If we don't remind him, he probably won't be able to do what you just said in his entire life. Magic often depends on the heart. If you yourself have not thought about certain aspects, your magic will not develop in those directions either. Ryan shrugged. When he finished speaking, Kate just changed into green wizard robe and walked over. Let me make it clear first. This time I won't go through the passage in your house and go directly to the 6th floor. I'm going to enter through the entrance on the 1st floor. You know, I've never been to St. Mungo's properly. Kate chatted as she walked up to Ryan. There is no sign of recent exercise at all. I'll listen to you. Ryan took Kate's hand and walked through a grey film. St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries is a magical hospital in London, England, sometimes referred to simply as St. Mungo's Hospital or just St. Mungo's. The hospital was founded in the early 17th century by the famous healer Mungo Bonham. In addition to wizards, in some cases, muggles who have been attacked by magic are also sent here for treatment. Medical staff in hospitals are called therapists and their uniforms are green gowns. Those wishing to become healers need to obtain at least an E. Good grade in the new subjects of potions, transfiguration, herbology, charms and defense against the dark arts. A wizard like Kate who is so poor at transfiguration has no hope of being employed here. Because, during the Wizarding War, healers were the safest group. After all, Death Eaters also need to see a doctor. As long as the doctor is a healer, even if he is a muggle, he can be given a break and the right to own a wand. So this leads to higher and higher requirements for therapists. The current requirement is that newts must obtain at least an E. Good grade in potions, transfiguration, herbology, charms and defense against the dark arts. St. Mungo's location is also very unique, being on a busy street in London. The streets are lined with a wide variety of shops. Its entrance is located in the calmest corner of this bustling street, in an old red brick department store called Tao Tao Company, Limited. The door of Tao Tao Company, Limited is always closed, with temporarily closed written on it, as if it has never been opened. Only people from the Smith family can enter as the owner of Tao Tao Company, Limited. Head to St. Mungo's from a path inside that leads directly to the secret room on the 6th floor of St. Mungo's. You can be admitted to the hospital directly without contacting people or making an appointment. Other wizards who want to enter St. Mungo's have to make their requests through the dummy in the window. For example, to see a doctor, or to meet a registered patient or hospital staff. Muggles rarely get through here. Although the troublesome company was not like the leaky cauldron, which had a confusion charm so strong that it was invisible to muggles. Muggles weren't surprised when someone close to it suddenly disappeared. But from the outside, this store doesn't look like a hospital. And no one would talk to the dummy and say the right name, or the right words to say when seeing a patient. Even if you happen to hit it, you don't necessarily think that you can go straight through the glass. At this moment, on this busy street, two figures appeared silently in the crowd. There are so many people here. Is it really okay to build a hospital here? Besides, it's so hot. Kate fanned herself with her hands. But she seemed to feel that this was not enough and leaned closer to Ryan's arms. Because Ryan's body temperature is always constant. In summer, it is like a human-shaped popsicle, and in winter, it is like a large hot water bottle. As long as people get close to him, coupled with the natural body fragrance emitted by a body as perfect as Ryan's, people will feel relaxed and refreshed. Look, Kate couldn't help but scream "Ah" in public. There are too many muggles in public. London. It's not easy to find a good site to build a hospital. And the land in Diagon Alley is not enough to accommodate a large hospital serving the entire wizarding community. But it can't be built underground like the Ministry of Magic, it's unsanitary. This is a hospital. Crowd, just like we are now. Ryan whispered to Kate. Kate looked around and found that there were indeed quite a few wizards in the dense crowd around her. But they were mostly wearing muggle clothes. He pointed at her and seemed very dissatisfied with her wizard appearance. Wait, Kate pushed Ryan away, they can see us. Of course, don't you want to have some fun? Ryan blinked his big eyes innocently. Oh hey. Don't look at me like that. What a shame. Ryan's big eyes, the anger in her heart disappeared inexplicably. Ryan, this is the privilege of handsome Guish. Why don't we go to the store quickly? Ryan pointed to the old red brick department store not far away. Okay. Kate lowered her head, pulled Ryan and trotted away without looking back. Soon, the two arrived in front of Tao Tao Company, Limited. The place looked desolate and deserted, with only a few broken mannequins in the window, wearing wigs askew. They were in different poses and were wearing clothes that were at least 10 years old. There are big signs saying closed for renovation hanging on the dusty doors. There were muggles around saying, "This place has never been open. Is this right here? What should I say?" Kate walked here and raised her head again. "Do you eat?" "Just said I came to see Frank Longbottom." Ryan blinked and said calmly. Chapter 505, Dumbledore and Grindelwald in Fright. "I think it should be this green one. After all, therapists all wear green uniforms." Kate thought for a moment and walked to a display window. There was only a particularly ugly female mannequin inside, with her false eyelashes about to fall off, and she was wearing a green nylon skirt. Kate leaned closer to the window and looked up at the ugly mannequin, her breath blurring the glass. "Hello. We are here to see Frank Longbottom." Kate thought it was a little funny though. Because there were so many people coming and going on the street and the noise of cars was so loud, how could the dummy hear her when she spoke in such a low voice through the glass? What's more, the dummies can't hear. "Look, it moves." Ryan saw what Kate was thinking at a glance, then pinched Kate's little face to remind her. Kate raised her eyes and the dummy actually moved. It slightly and waved its linked fingers. "You can go now." Ryan took Kate's little hand and disappeared through the glass. Kate was dragged along and followed Ryan closely. When she was about to touch the glass, she suddenly looked back. In the bustling crowd, no one glanced at the ugly window of Tau Tau Company, nor did they notice that Ryan had just merged into the air in front of everyone. Logically speaking, Kate should be used to it. She and Ryan already had magic to conceal themselves. But she is different from Ryan. Her kind of talent is an active skill. This was the first time that Ryan disappeared into the crowd without activating any skills and without concealing the presence of the two people. This struck Kate as a little odd. She became more and more curious about what would happen next. Today, Ryan and she just want to be an ordinary wizard couple. Does this mean that she is more special than Penelope, Fleur, Luna and Hermione? Kate couldn't help but smile sweetly. But there is one thing Kate can confirm. Ryan must have used some weird magic to reduce his charm. Because if it weren't for this, in his normal state, which was like a male-enhanced villa, he would have been surrounded by people obsessed with his appearance. This thought only lasted for a moment. Because her thoughts were soon interrupted by the strange feeling of passing through the glass, as if passing through a layer of cold water, but entering the room warm and dry. Ryan was just in front of her to the right, and in front of her was a crowded waiting room, extra tentacles sprouting from their chests. It was like being in Atlantis again. People there always like to install interesting external organs on themselves. It was not much quieter inside than on the street, for there were many patients making very strange noises in the middle of the front row. A pail which was stretching out her hands and tapping the air with her fingers, with a sound of piano playing coming out of her mouth corner. Could hear the buzzing sound of bees flying among the flowers and plants as soon as he moved. His left eye also began to roll around. He had to force himself to stay still and close his eyes. Green-robed witches and wizards moved among the waiting patients, asking questions and taking notes on their clipboards. "Are we going to line up?" Kate trilled with joy at Ryan. Q. This name has been long since she and Ryan heard it. Next to Ryan, who can hide his presence, she never needs to queue. They just need to walk to the front of the line and then show up. Others would also think that they were both there all the time. "Okay, let's line up." Ryan touched Kate's head lovingly, and pulled her to the line amid the buzzing sound of the thin wizard. Behind Cataline, a little head curiously popped out from the side and looked around. At the front of the line, a fat blonde witch sat in front of a desk marked information desk. The wall behind her was covered with notices and posters, such as cleaning cauldrons to prevent potions from turning into poisons, and antidotes must not be used indiscriminately and must be approved by a qualified healer. There is also a large portrait with only the background, which reads, Delis Devon St. Mungo's Healer, 1722 to 1741, Headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, 1741 to 1768. Kate rolled her round eyes and curled her lips. It seems that her luck is not very good. Principal Delis is not here. She would rather stay in the principal's office. At least there are many family portraits there. Maybe I can even eavesdrop on Dumbledore and Grindelwald's gossip. They're both in Hogwarts right now, maybe they're in love. Ryan glanced at Kate and said, "What the hell?" Ryan was almost scared to death. You know, he never said this word again after he traveled through time. Because, in Ryan's eyes, Kate's eyes seemed to light up suddenly, even brighter than a 24K Krypton Gold Dog's eyes. Ryan could only shake his head to indicate that he was too young. He forgot that Kate had once been a Dumbledore fan, too. Although over the years, with the help of Gandalf in the mind game, Kate no longer admires him. But Dumbledore and Grindelwald's twilight romance still aroused Kate's paparazzi heart. Rita Skeeter-ii is back. Kate, Ryan, why don't we just skip the queue and go straight to Hogwarts? What if they weren't together? Ryan raised his eyebrows. You can add a little bit of magic. Isn't it good to let two people in love be together? Kate grinned and rubbed her hands. Thousands of miles away in Hogwarts, Grindelwald and Dumbledore, who were in the tent in the headmaster's office respectively, suddenly turned around and drew their wands at the same time. Inside the tent, a huge crowd of people knelt down. Master, what do you want me to do? Nothing. Grindelwald put away his wand in confusion. In the headmaster's office, the kneeling people were replaced by the headmaster's office portrait, but they did not kneel down. Instead, they all asked Dumbledore their questions. Chill. I have a hunch that Aberforth will definitely come after us. Well, why use us? Forget it, if that's the case. I think that goat-loving Aberforth will fight his brother and Grindelwald to the death. Ryan whispered to Kate in the St. Mungo's team, okay. But don't all Dumbledores have quirks? Likes wizards, and it seems there is another one who likes hawk-crap. Ryan shook his head. You remembered it wrong. The man who likes hawk-crap is not named Dumbledore. He is the fiancé of our headmaster's aunt. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 506, St. Mungo Smith's Industry? It was 4 p.m., in the waiting room on the first floor of St. Mungo's. Ryan, who was trying to persuade Kate to be a decent person, suddenly froze. He turned his head and looked in the direction of what should be a wall, and his deep silver-white eyes suddenly turned into ferocious animal eyes. What did you see again? Kate skillfully activated the rune on her right hand, trying to connect to Ryan's vision. Hiss. A slight numbing feeling like an electric shock came from her right hand. Kate pouted, knowing she was being rejected. Her round eyes rolled around and looked in the direction Ryan was looking, and she began to mutter to herself. Aha! It's Hogwarts. Kate patted Ryan proudly. Although her transfiguration skills were poor, she learned many interesting spells through mind games. She had just used a spell to determine the magical magnetic field based on her own position. In the direction Ryan was looking, there was an ancient magnetic field that she was familiar with. Yet, Ryan noted, indicating that Kate guessed correctly. In order to save words, Ryan continued, it's Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Their wizard intuition is really strong. Did they sense what I was thinking just now? Kate let out a sigh of disappointment. Ryan glanced at the long line in front and continued, not only that, they were also scared that they pulled out their wands. Ah, then they must be in so much pain. Being so famous as them, there must be many wizards who have bad intentions towards them. Do you admit that you have bad intentions? So what? Not very good, but do you know what it means to be aware of autumn before it starts? Just say it. It means that the autumn wind has not yet arrived, but the cicadas have sensed it. Your bad thoughts just now are like the autumn wind, and they are like cicadas. Cicadas are a species of life that die in autumn. They are moving because your action can actually threaten them. What? Do you mean, the bad intentions of other wizards are just dust blowing by? How can they be compared with your autumn breeze? Ryan finally explained. At this time, it was Ryan and the others' turn. A middle-aged wizard at the front of the team was holding his nose and pacing anxiously. Kate jumped out of the team curiously and looked from the side. He had a walnut stuck in his nose, almost dispute. Huh? The blonde witch behind the information disc chuckled. You're the third one I've seen today. Charm damage department, 5th floor. Kate jumped back behind Ryan and took a few steps forward. Next, a doddering witch with an absurd number of hairpins came up to her at a pace that would test one's patience. I'm here to see Shirley Montgomery. Ward 33, but I'm afraid you're wasting your time. The witch's fake smile began to fade. She's completely confused and thinks she's a rabbit. Next. Then a wizard jumped in front of the witch. His legs turned into springs, making a constant doong-doong sound on the marble floor. I was cast on a newly invented evil curse. I used a restoring spell, but it didn't work. And he bounced in front of the witch, his head hitting the ceiling from time to time. The blonde witch pointed impatiently at the big sign on the left side of the table. You have to go to the charm damage department on the 5th floor. It's written on the sign. Next. We're finally there. Ryan turned to Kate and said. However, Kate was reading the sign, Instrumental Accident Department. First floor, exploding cauldrons, misfiring wands, broomstick collisions, etc. Biological Injury Department. Second floor, stings, burns, punctures, etc. Department of Strange Bacteria Infections. Third floor, dragonpox, vanishing disease, lymphatic fungal infection and other infectious diseases, pharmacy and plant poisoning section. Fourth floor, rash, nausea, uncontrollable laughter, etc. Spell damage department. Fifth floor, spells that can't be removed, spells used incorrectly, etc. Tea room and shop. Sixth floor, if you don't know which subject to go to, can't speak normally, or can't remember why you came, our receptionists are willing to help. You're here again. The blonde witch just raised her head, and her impatience immediately turned into a sweet tone. Dear, how can I help you? The witch lifted her hair and deliberately opened the collar of her robe a little wider. I couldn't stop blinking at Ryan. Just as the witch wanted to introduce the contents on the sign one by one and delay the communication time, Ryan spoke. We are here to visit Frank Longbottom and Alice Longbottom. The witch's expression changed immediately. She straightened her waist, stepped back, and pulled up her collar. After struggling for a moment, he changed his tone to a serious one. Do you have an appointment? We have a record of the Longbottom's visitors, but I don't remember you two. My last name is Smith, Ryan Smith. Ryan snapped his fingers. The witch's eyes wandered for a moment, then she focused again. Shouldn't you start from the sixth floor you have? Are you talking about this? Ryan took out a piece of silver white paper from his arms, on which was printed an eye with unknown runes flowing in the pupil. Please, fifth floor, fifth door on the right. They are in the door that has always been locked. Here is the key. The witch handed over a yellow key respectfully. Ryan took the key and pulled Kate into the double doors next to him. Cool. Look at how that old woman behaved just now. But as soon as you revealed your identity, Ryan, she changed. Could it be St. Mungo's? Kate couldn't help but exclaimed. Just as you think, St. Mungo's is also our property. Mungo Bonham is only one of the founders. He founded it together with Vanden Smith. But that lady didn't do that because of my identity. It's her conscience and professional ethics. Apparently she knew why the Longbottoms were in the hospital, and their specific identities. If it were fudge, I wouldn't need to show my identity at all, I could just scan my face. Ryan shrugged. As they spoke, they walked through the double doors. Soon a rickety staircase appeared in front of the two. Be careful, there's hell ahead. Before going up the stairs, Ryan looked at Kate, suppressed his smile, and spoke in a low voice. What? Kate didn't have time to react. She was dragged up the stairs. She finally understood what hell meant. There are many portraits of hidden-looking therapists hanging on the walls. As they climbed the stairs, the healers barked at Kate, diagnosing bizarre conditions, the sequelae of which were short stature, and suggesting horrible cures. In short, Kate was furious. Chapter 507 The Notorious Smith Family. Kate is going crazy, and some medieval wizard yells that she apparently has severe dwarfism. To do this he chased Kate for 6 frames, pushing the subject aside. What did you say I had? Kate stamped her feet in annoyance, causing the already shaky stairs to shake even more. This is a hormone imbalance, young lady. It will shorten your arms and legs, making you even shorter than you are now. Who are you calling short? Kate's eyes turned red with anger. She suddenly stopped where she was and looked at the medieval wizard. The only way is to take a toad's liver and put it on your chest, and stand naked in a bucket of eel eyes under the bright sun and moonlight. I don't have dwarfism, but you are obviously very short, and judging by your appearance, you must be over 17 or 18 years old. Miss, I'm born short. My dad is short too. Kate was furious. Go back to your own frame and stop bothering me, she turned to Ryan, who was trying to keep a straight face. Ryan had to pat his head comfortingly to stop himself from laughing out loud. Which floor are we on? Kate said in a muffled voice. We're already on the 5th floor. Ryan walked towards the platform and pointed to the double doors marked with the word Spell Damage Department. Is this the place? Of course not. Kate, do you remember what that lady said? The Longbottoms live in a closed ward that is usually locked. In response to Kate's question, Ryan took her hand and led her to a room at the end of the corridor. Ryan was about to open the door when a therapist with a gold and silver wreath on her head hurried over. Hello, are you two here to visit Frank and Alice? Nervous, and her holy face was filled with worldly emmets. As a vigilance that went deep into the bones not good enough. Kate jumped up and down with a gloating look on her face. Mom, look into my eyes. Ryan's words seemed to have magic. The therapist, who had been very resistant just now, seemed to have lost his soul the next second and looked obediently into Ryan's silver eyes. Then the therapist froze in place. What's going on? Kate asked. Dividends in various magical industries such as food, clothing, housing and transportation in the British wizarding world. This behavior obviously makes some wizards who know of its existence think badly. Ryan's brows were furrowed. Is there anything wrong with our family being rich? Ryan was shocked. He could not have imagined that the reputation of their Smith would be reduced to the extent that in the original world line, he was mistaken for Harry, the heir of Slytherin. Every therapist learns about the fact that the Smith family is actually the controller of St. Mungo's after joining the company. But due to the contract they cannot spread the news to the outside world, although this contract has no other effect except preventing Smith's news from being spread outside, but some people always feel that it hinders their freedom. This negative sentiment was passed down from generation to generation among therapists. Even the room where Smith stayed on the 6th floor was used as a laboratory for these evil people. Wards are the long-term experimental subjects of the Smith family. If we were a time traveler without any cheats, we would be speechless at this point. Because these rumors focus on the contract from the beginning. No matter how much evidence you produce, these stupid therapists won't believe it until the contract is unlocked. But Ryan is different. If there's any problem that can't be solved by words, it's his turn to use his omnipotent magic. You don't believe it, but I can make you believe it. A golden magical light flashed in Ryan's eyes. The therapist who was standing there in a daze came back to his senses immediately. I was so stupid that I actually believed such rumors, the therapist concluded after a series of 365-degree apologies. It's nothing, just do what you are supposed to do. You are undoubtedly a great therapist for standing up to protect your patients in the face of danger. Then now, Ryan signaled with his eyes. The therapist quickly opened the door. After entering the door, the therapist who came to his home field returned to normal. No longer the trembling apology machine that keeps saying sorry at every turn. She welcomed the long-term patients in the ward with her infectious smile. It's like they were her family. From the movements that were so commonplace that they were almost muscle memory, it was clear that this therapist was not pretending just because Ryan and the others were there. There were 2 people in the ward, and 2 beds at the other end surrounded by a floral curtain. Wizards outside were clearly not. Even if Ryan had not seen a photo of the Longbottoms, he knew that the sallow-faced, gloomy-faced wizard, mumbling to himself and unmoved by the therapist's words, was not Frank Longbottom. The hairy, barking woman 2 beds away from the wizard couldn't be Alice Longbottom. There was nothing about either of them like Neville. Agnes, the therapist greeted the hairy-faced woman tenderly. I told you that you wouldn't be forgotten. Your son just sent an owl to say he'd come to see you tonight. That's nice, isn't it? Agnes barked loudly several times. There are fewer and fewer patients here. Most patients will choose to stay with their families if their illness cannot be cured. There are very few families like Agnes who never give up. Others are abandoned by their families. The therapist pointed at the wizard who was talking to himself inside in a low voice. His family hasn't visited him for several years. Ryan agreed. In the original world line, when Harry Potter was in 5th grade, that is, 2 years later, the long-haired witch and the bitter-faced wizard were still here. As for Frank and the others, Lady Augusta has always insisted on keeping her son and son-in-law at St. Mungo's. She always believed that one day her son and son-in-law would recover. You are telling the truth, right? The therapist turned his head sharply. Frank and Alice will be back to normal today, right? Smith never tells lies. Ryan smiled and walked to the bed surrounded by floral curtains. Chapter 508 Detective Ryan. Ministry of Magic employee dies in a violent accident. St. Mungo's Hospital pledged last night to conduct a full investigation into the death of Ministry of Magic employee Broderick Bode. Mr. Bode, 49, was strangled to death in his hospital bed by a potted plant, and the therapists were unable to save him. Mr. Bode was injured in a work accident a few weeks ago. William Straw, the therapist in charge of Mr. Bode's ward at the time of the incident, was suspended with pay and declined to be interviewed in Ryan's Mind Hall. The book with the words Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix opened automatically without wind and turned to the page. Chapter 25 The Helpless Beetle. Just now, When Ryan lamented that the wizard who spoke to himself was still in the closed ward 2 years later, the sea of his subconsciousness inexplicably began to stir. Only then did he realize that the wizard who was talking to himself was Broderick Bode, that was originally due to an injury at work accident 2 years later. Then he died accidentally on Christmas Day. The murder weapon was a bedside plant, a devil snare disguised as a Christmas cactus. It also has another identity, which is a Christmas gift. After Broderick Bode's speech and mobility were almost fully recovered, therapist Straw encouraged him to take care of the plant himself. In the original world line, when Harry Potter and his friends came to visit Arthur Weasley, they happened to meet an old wizard with a trumpet-shaped hearing aid who came to visit Bode, who was abandoned by his family. Even the pot of plant was delivered to Bode's bedside right before their eyes. The original world line, he was injured by Death Eaters in late 1995, lost the ability to speak, and thought he was a teapot. But even so, he was sent to the Devil's Net and assassinated without knowing whether he had recovered. And now in this world line, Voldemort and his last Death Eaters are in Azkaban. The Ministry's Death Eaters had long been eliminated and killed one by one. But even though there are Death Eaters in the Ministry of Magic, the reason why Bode was injured is that the prophecy ball containing the complete prophecy of the Savior has not yet become Voldemort's target. Bode's attack 2 years earlier must be related to the recent changes in the Ministry of Magic. Because combining the changes in the two world lines, the only common point in his attacks is the changes in the Ministry of Magic. This means that in the original world line, even if there were no Death Eaters, he would still be attacked as long as there were major changes in the Ministry of Magic. However, let's confirm one thing first. Your name is Melium Straw, right? Ryan asked casually in a relaxed tone, just 1 second after the real world. Yes, how do you know my name? Straw, who is looking forward to Ryan casting magic to rescue the Longbottoms, blinked in confusion. Ryan waved his hand, took out a pair of black-framed plain glasses from the air, put them on, and his hair turned black. He also changed his attire to a blue suit, shorts, and a red bow tie. Nothing, I just found something more interesting. He adjusted his glasses. The mirror surface glowed white. Straw felt something was wrong. Could it be that this magic requires the help of legends from the Muggle world? What was even stranger was that she inexplicably felt that this was the attraction of a detective. But there is no detective who dresses like a 7 or 8-year-old child. Also, what is a detective? Edgar Conan? The elementary school student of death? Kate, who had played the game of solving cases and mind games, exclaimed when therapist Strauss was daydreaming. Death? Is that a Muggle legend in America? Well, only in the stories of Americans, who have a short history, does the Grim Reaper look like this, Strauss thought. Ryan waved his wand casually towards the floral curtains. Mr. and Mrs. Frank have been cured. They will wake up and regain their sanity in an hour. Now the focus is on another matter. I need to solve this problem. Ahem, what did you say? Strauss couldn't believe his ears. She saw Ryan wave his wand. No magic beam was seen. Kate was tactful enough to remain silent. Ryan's outfit represents the atmosphere of the case. But who is the victim? And there's the murderer. Kate began to observe the entire room carefully. Well, that's because you don't understand the principle that great sounds are silent and great images are invisible. Straw, why was Broderick Bode admitted to the hospital? What department does he work for at the ministry? He was struck by a flashback from his wand while working, and ended up losing the ability to speak and thinking he was a teapot. He's a hitter. Wrong. This is a murder case. He was murdered on the 9th floor of the Ministry of Magic, in the brain room of the Department of Mysteries. About to happen here. Murder? Are you mistaken? Strauss took a few steps back in fear. Kate, go check the pillows, use my vision. Really? What is this? Kate, with silver eyes, opened the pillow with her hands and took out a black button from the cotton. This contains a curse that will cause people to lose their voices and die. Not a bad method. It seems that the recent crackdown has made the murderer's methods much more sophisticated. That's right, what the hell is a devil's snare? Ryan looked at the button with satisfaction. Mr. Smith, I didn't put this there. All our tools are produced by your factory. Straw looked at Ryan in panic. Well, the murderer is a doddering old wizard with a trumpet-shaped hearing aid. He came to visit poor Bode the day before yesterday. Just hand this matter and this button over to the dean and tell him that it was my order. The proof is in the old man's wand. Just cast a flashback spell on his wand. Ryan's silver eyes flashed with golden clocks. Therapist Strauss couldn't help but feel a pang in his heart. It seemed as if it could see through everything. He was clearly standing in this room, but he saw the wand of an old wizard whose whereabouts he didn't even know a few days ago. Oh, I almost forgot one thing. What's up? Notify Augusta Longbottom and tell her that her son and daughter-in-law are fine. Ryan took off his glasses. The outfit just now was also restored to its original state. That's it. Why was Bode attacked? And why didn't you just tell Neville? Kate looked up and asked after Hillerstraw rushed out the door. Thanks. Hooray. I still found a way to recover unsaved files in WPS. Chapter 509, Wedge engraved in the human body. In the empty enclosed ward, only a long-haired woman named Agnes on the bed on one side barked from time to time. Ryan said nothing, but just smiled at Kate. The next second, a gray-dimensional wall emerged from the air and passed through Ryan and Kate's body's sides. Suddenly, the sea of fog rolled up. Two figures, one tall and one short, emerged from the sea of fog. Are you back? Is there anything you can't say there? The short figure waved his hand in dissatisfaction. Kate shorthanded and stepped out of the fog. I'll talk as we walk. Let me first tell you why we didn't tell Neville. Now he is with Harry Potter and his companions, as well as Crumb from Durmstrang. Listen to Crumb complaining. I don't think it's the right time. And wouldn't this belated birthday gift be better as a surprise? When he returned to the mansion where only his grandmother and grandson were staying via the flu network, he happened to meet his parents who had recovered. What a happy and wonderful scene this is. Having said that, Ryan stopped. The other free hand stroked the drooping branches of the oak trees by the roadside, as if stroking the face of an invisible person. Being a stranger in a strange land, a strange language that Kate couldn't understand came out along with Ryan's sigh. That's why he didn't teach Kate and the others Chinese. There were some words, some sighs, some brief moments of vulnerability that he didn't want to share with anyone. What are you saying? Are you okay, little brat? Kate quickly came over and touched Ryan's face with concern. Ryan shook his head and broke free from Kate's hand. Nothing? Let's talk about the Broderick Bode murder case. Flowing water has no shape, drifting wind cannot find any trace, and the reasoning of any case depends on the heart. And in the few seconds I walked towards the Longbottom's bedside, I saw everything. All of this starts with the most primitive desire of human beings, the desire for immortality. Longevity? What do you mean? Yes, Broderick Bode's research touches on this. He worked in the brain department of the Department of Mysteries, and they studied more than just those banal proteins in the brain. Instead, focus on the pulse frequency waves that flicker between gray matter and white matter, thoughts. The squirming brains in the boxes in the brain all have colorful tentacles. The wounds left by being entangled by them can only be healed by using Dr. Disadvantage's forgetfulness ointment to make the body forget, and this is only the most superficial of their achievements. The best of them even involve the transfer of mind and personality. And Broderick Bode is stuck in this area. But he didn't realize how far his magic could go. But his colleague, the old wizard with a trumpet-shaped hearing aid I mentioned, is Melvin Jackson. Injecting one's own thoughts into others, thereby perpetuating one's own personality. It's close. However, it cannot be described as injection, which is not accurate. It's transformation. Make the person under the curse think that he is the one who cast the curse. My colleagues at Bode share the same idea as you. His research area is better at stealing memories, not the crude reading of legilimency, but as subtle as the spring breeze. He stole Bode's research results and improved them. Host himself must not know how to use brain occlumency. When the wedge spreads, the host's thoughts and personality will become like the wedge's owner. Who is the host? Is Bode's murder also related to this? Bode's murder was inevitable. Jackson obviously wouldn't want anyone to find out that he was occupying someone else's body. As for the host, you may be familiar with his last name, Fudge. His name is Rufus Fudge, nephew of Cornelius Fudge Old, a first-year student at Hogwarts. Should he be in second grade now? He turned 12 in December, and Hogwarts starts in September, so he started school this year. If he had enrolled last year, I would have discovered it a long time ago. Jackson had targeted him, apparently because he was the nephew of the Minister of Magic last year. Kate raised her eyebrows. So he has turned into that old ghost Jackson. Not yet, but it will be soon. Ryan snapped his fingers, and the sound of glass breaking passed by. Okay, it's okay now. Ryan blinked. There was one more thing he didn't say. Like Bode, Rufus Fudge was killed 2 years earlier. Kate hasn't read the Harry Potter novels, so she wouldn't understand the concepts. The early deaths of these two people were indeed related to the adjustments made by the Ministry of Magic. Because even though Jackson is old and even wears a trumpet-shaped hearing aid all day, he is actually in good health. He disguised himself so that he could die appropriately after entertaining his thoughts. However, the emergence of Voldemort and the changes in the Ministry of Magic made him feel a sense of crisis, so he set his sights on Rufus Fudge. Dumbledore broke off relations. So according to the original world line, Jackson attacked Rufus Fudge after Harry's 4th year. And attacked poor Bode, giving Bode a fatal gift on Christmas of Harry's 5th year. Did you solve it? That wedge. Kate didn't know what Ryan was thinking just now. Seeing Ryan's finger snaps and the unusual sound, combined with his words, she guessed so. Okay. But that's not all. The Ministry of Magic is now acting very vigorously. We had just returned here, less than 10 minutes later, and the Aurors were already at Melvin Jackson's door. However, he readily pleaded guilty. Ryan said, trying to suppress his smile. Wait, does Jackson no longer have to maintain his wedge? He thought he had it all figured out and was just waiting to die. That's right, Kate. But now that Azkaban has disappeared, he can only go to the new prison, the Cage, to be his cellmate with Cornelius Fudge, Umbridge, and Gilderoy Lockhart. Ryan shrugged. Thanks to Taeshi Yumiksu, Long Xiangxiu, Haoshan Tongming Palace Jade Emperor for their monthly tickets, and other classmates for their recommendations and subscriptions. Chapter 510, People Who Won't Come. On the dim street, under the strange-looking flying vehicles, 6 figures were waving goodbye reluctantly. Are you going back to Hogwarts? Harry looked at Krum, who still had a serious look on his face. Yes, I heard that not only Durmstrang, but students from the other 2 colleges also live in Hogwarts, together with those wolf-transformed wizards. Draco said after thinking for a moment. Ginny didn't say anything, she just yawned secretly. Neville was about to say a few words but was interrupted by Ron. Krum, how can I live without you, Krum? Faced with Ron's fierce confession, his stiff face, which seemed to remain unchanged even under the pressure of a mountain, suddenly changed color. He is a famous world-class Quidditch star, and there's Harry Potter here. If he attracts people here, he can forget about going back to the leaky cauldron to rest. Thinking of this, he looked at Draco first. We students don't live in Hogwarts. There were only professors and the headmaster, who are now acting as professors for the wolf-transformed wizards. That bastard Grindelwald is said to be researching how to turn muggles into wizards. And you? Draco asked. The French witch and I should have traveled at our own expense. When we officially come to the UK, we should be with other students. You will see something very interesting then. Although Krum's face was so stiff that he could not make any expression other than frowning or blinking, there was still a smile in his eyes. What? Harry blinked curiously. I won't spoil the story yet. Here, Ron, my autographed photo. I'm leaving now. Krum let go of Ron, stuffed a handful of photos into his hand, and ran away without looking back. Krum, what's wrong with you? Ron looked at the photos again. Fortunately, these photos are not the same, and they are all signed. I'm leaving. Neville at the side suddenly spoke up and then disappeared into the crowd. Aren't we all going to the leaky cauldron? Use the fireplace there and go back via the Flu network. Krum lives there? Harry asked in confusion. Draco on the side quickly gestured and looked at Ron. Ron was still there, looking at the photo in his hand hungrily like a pervert. Harry realized. The next morning, it was the familiar room again. Harry rubbed his eyes and yawned. Harry. There were the sounds of bangs on the stairs outside the door, and Ron's voice. What's wrong? Harry said, picked up the wand on the table, and used it to clean his mouth and face. Grease and mucus on his face disappeared. Harry became more refreshed. Boom. Ron pushed the door open. He was holding a copy of the Daily Prophet. His hair was messy, and he was wearing pajamas, but the sound of banging on the stairs did not disappear. After a while, 2 figures also in pajamas appeared behind Ron as if they understood. You'll know after reading this. Ron raised the Daily Prophet in his hand. There's also a very interesting news. Draco added. What? Harry took the newspaper and Ginny came over. There were 3 familiar figures on the side of the newspaper, one of whom was Neville, whom he had just met yesterday. The muscular man kept wiping away tears. As for the 2 people behind Neville, they had seen them in the group photo of the Order of the Phoenix. It's Neville's parents. They were all still wearing their St. Mungo's pajamas, as if they had just been released from the hospital and had not had time to change. None of them had the round, happy faces they had seen in the photo of the earliest members of the Order of the Phoenix. He looked thin and haggard, with his big eyes and messy, dry white hair, giving people the feeling that he could be blown away by the wind. Harry looked at the following text: The awakening of the heroes of the First Wizarding War. Frank Longbottom and Alice Longbottom are a great couple respected by the wizarding world. Before they had their horrific experience, being driven mad by Bellatrix Lestrange using the Cruciatus curse, they were conscious Aurors. He was also a member of the first generation of the Order of the Phoenix who was fighting on the front lines against the Death Eaters. Fortunately, according to William Straw, a therapist at St. Mungo's closed ward, when I was making Mr. Boyd's bed, I found. This is related to another news. Please turn to the next page, that I heard Agnes in the next bed suddenly making continuous noises, and then I noticed that Mr. and Mrs. Longbottom had woken up. This was totally different from usual. They all seemed unusually rational and even spoke. You know, they didn't talk much the whole time, just gestured or lay quietly holding hands together. Except Neville Longbottom then. Harry couldn't help but smile. He almost couldn't wait to start looking down. Here is another photo. But this is a group photo. The Longbottoms have already changed their clothes. I also tidied my hair and looked much more energetic. Neville and his grandmother are not on the photo. But he wasn't surprised at all, exactly the same as the photo Ryan had shown them earlier. The same round table, wine bottles, and striped wallpaper behind. But the only difference is that there are fewer people. It's not that these people don't have time or can't make it back. Rather, they have long disappeared or have been clearly dead. On this happy day, these thoughts could not help but come to Harry's mind. What's wrong, Harry? Draco frowned, thought of Marlene McKinnon, G. Fenwick and other people who will never come back. Harry shook his head. Thanks to Yili Zishang for his monthly ticket and other classmates for their recommendations and subscriptions. Chapter 511, St. Mungo's Healer Solve Murder Case. In the room decorated in cool blue to create a cozy atmosphere, 3 people were frowning. The only person who didn't notice the strange atmosphere was naturally Ron. Haha, now you know where my parents are. Shut up, Ron. Ginny and Draco said almost at the same time. What's wrong? Facing the scolding from his best friend and sister, he was a little confused. Could it be related to what Harry just said? Oops, didn't pay attention. Thinking of this, Ron rubbed his head in annoyance. Nothing, Ron is always like this. Harry waved his hand and looked at Draco again. What is the interesting news you just mentioned? Just turn the page. Draco said unhappily. I was a photograph in the photo, a therapist who looks reminiscent of her mother and wears a wreath of gold and silver flowers on her head is holding a black button with tweezers next to her. A wizard with a sallow complexion and a sad look was lying on the bed, his head tilted as if he wanted to say something. Harry continued, St. Mungo's Healer Solves Murder Case. This report is from our special correspondent Rita Skeeter. Continuing from the previous article, William Straw, a therapist at St. Mungo's closed ward, was also the discoverer of this news. But this time she has an additional identity, an excellent detective. Broderick Boyd is a 47-year-old employee of the Ministry of Magic. Before this news broke, everyone thought he was injured in a work accident a few weeks ago. A poor man who was abandoned by his family because he lost his ability to speak and thought he was a teapot. But therapist Miriam Straw noticed something was wrong immediately. This actually didn't surprise her other colleagues. Miriam is very attentive. Even the most withdrawn patients will recover under her meticulous care, said Harvey Bonham, the great-grandson of the famous therapist Mungo Bonham and current director of St. Mungo's Hospital, another discoverer of the news. The attentive Ms. Straw keenly sensed that something was wrong. A black magic button is found inside Mr. Bird's pillow. And contacted Melvin Jackson, who had come to see Mr. Bird a few days ago. Has to be said that since Ms. Bones and Mr. Weasley took office, the Ministry of Magic has changed its previous lazy and conservative style. Less than 20 minutes after Ms. Straw reported the anomaly, Aurors surrounded 67 Privet Drive in London, the home of 78-year-old Melvin Jackson. Our sudden attack frightened him. Before we could say anything, old Jackson admitted everything. He said he was jealous that Boyd did a better job than he did. Plus, he didn't have long to live, so he made this decision that went against his conscience. Said Auror Finney Dax, who couldn't wait to emphasize his name again and again. After the examination, the accompanying therapist, Because Jackson looked very old when he visited Bode before, and wore a hearing aid on his head, in order to prevent him from sudden death from shock, found that Jackson had indeed suffered from organ failure. Even if the ministry didn't arrest him, he wouldn't survive a month. But surprisingly, judging from the effect of the button on Mr. Bode, if he sleeps with it for another 20 days, he will die of organ failure. Stephen, the accompanying therapist, said in surprise after the examination. It is hard to believe that old Jackson was jealous. He clearly wanted to die at the same time as Mr. Bode. There might even be a hidden Dumbledore-like connection. But unfortunately, according to Mr. Bode, who woke up and returned to normal, he lost most of his memories about old Jackson. Skeeter is still the same as before. What Dumbledore-style relationship? It's really disgusting. Why doesn't Sirius take care of her? Ron walked up and patted Harry on the back, looking indignant. It's not important. Did you notice? The murderer lived on Privet Drive. Maybe he was sent by Dumbledore to protect me. But he turned out to be a murderer. Harry was still horrified. His Uncle Dursley's house was at number 4, Privet Drive. Number 67 is far away from number 4. But he might have seen the old man named Melvin Jackson before. It must be just a coincidence, said Ron. Dumbledore wouldn't send a fellow like that to spy on you. Ron glared at Draco when he heard about the spying. Ron is right. You have to know that many wizards now live in Muggle communities, for the convenient Muggle life, good TV shows, etc. The same should be true for the old man named Melvin. Harry agreed. Harry said that Ron was not entirely right. It's not about beautiful witches. Mr. Weasley's original words were that he and Dick both had many female relatives of the right age. Great. Harry, how do you remember it so clearly? Ginny narrowed her eyes and pricked Harry's soft flesh with one hand without any instruction. Just like Mrs. Weasley did to Mr. Weasley. Ginny broke Ron's relief. And you, Ron, I will mention this in my letter when I talk to Lavender. No, Ginny. On the other side, in the study of Smith Castle, Kate was also holding the Daily Prophet. Next to her were Fleur and Penelope. From the looks on their faces, they all seemed to know something about what happened between Kate and Ryan yesterday. Have the healer and the dean forgotten about us? And how did the person who solved the case become someone else? Kate waved the newspaper in her hand in dissatisfaction. In her opinion, this was a rare opportunity to experience the life of an ordinary person with Ryan. Ryan also officially announced his existence to others. Why are all the things they did blame on others? Did I tell you that the rest of the matter will be handled by the headmaster of St. Mungo's? Harvey did a great job. Ryan agreed with satisfaction. Chapter 512 Angry Kate. So, those guys haven't forgotten us. If Augusta Longbottom and Neville are like this, doesn't that mean they all know about you and Kate? Penelope looked curious. The Ryan she knew, under normal circumstances, the healer and headmaster of St. Mungo's would have forgotten everything long ago. Although they will still remember Smith, they will not remember specifically who that Smith was. We can't even tell others that it was Smith who solved the problem. But now, judging from the conversation between Kate and Ryan, they don't seem to have been forgotten. You know, the Longbottom family has a close relationship with the Order of the Phoenix. And the person Ryan least wanted to have anything to do with was undoubtedly that person. The greatest white wizard, Albus Dumbledore presents. I'm worried that Dumbledore might change his mind, and then, in the real world, Ryan just happened to answer, they are Longbottom. I foresaw that they would not mention anything about Smith. Longbottom has always known about Smith. That's right, Longbottom and Smith are from the same source. Penelope said with a smile, covering her face, in order to hide her previous fantasy. Are all you British people so brave? That Jackson actually cursed himself. Furin, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly sighed. Isn't it that Jackson was about to die? So they planted a wedge against Little Fudge, then attacked his colleagues, trying to bring all those who knew the magic of changing personality to hell. Kate blinked her big eyes in confusion. Did you notice Jackson's symptoms? Organ failure. And the curse he placed on Bode also caused organ failure. Fleur raised her eyebrows in displeasure. Dwarf was just an addition to Penelope, but in front of her, she acts like a hostess all day long. No. There is another possibility. Didn't Rita Skeeter also say that? He and Bode have a Dumbledore-like relationship. He must want to die at the same time and in the same way as his lover, Bode. Kate stood up angrily. How dare a mere Frenchman, a vixen, rap in front of her? It seems that the name Rita Skeeter is not false. You are as stupid as her. No, you are even more stupid. Who are you talking about? Phlegm. Guess who I'm talking about? Dwarf girl. You know more than Rita Skeeter. That old ghost Jackson thought that he would be resurrected in the body of little Fudge soon. It can't even be considered a suicide for love. Skeeter used to wake you up. Dumbledore is a thing of the past to me. I no longer worship him. Penelope, Ryan, look at Furin. Kate rolled her big round eyes and looked at Ryan and Kate. The two of them were hugging each other and eating melon happily. Okay. Ryan stood up, walked to Kate and picked her up. But this was not because he favored Kate, but because, I'm sorry, Kate, Furin is right. According to Jackson's physical function, he can live to at least 100 years old. 200 years is not impossible. He is a wizard who is very good at regulating his own mind. That curse was indeed placed by Jackson on himself. He thought that no one would find out until he died. Haha, dwarf Kate, I said. Fleur? Shush. Ryan held Kate, who was struggling, with one hand and raised his middle finger, signaling Fleur to shut up. As for Furin, she snorted softly, shook her silvery golden hair, sat back in a corner of the sofa, and calmed down. Hateful. What a disgusting thing, sticky phlegm. Kate buried her little face in Ryan's arms and said in a muffled voice, yeah, it's Furin's fault. How dare she bully my good Kate? After thousands of corny words and Ryan's occasional pat on the back to comfort her, Kate gradually calmed down. Ryan then added, but Kate, you shouldn't call Fleur sticky. Kate is already an adult, a mature adult, an elegant British lady who doesn't bother with the French. Kate was about to get when she heard the first half of the sentence, but the words mature adult, elegant, and British lady all struck her heart deeply. The randomly picked up a book from the bookshelf behind her and started reading Reddit, Street. Mungo's is really unreliable. If Ryan hadn't come, wouldn't Bode be dead? Haha. Penelope. St. Mungo's belongs to our family. Kate raised her little face proudly, her round chin seemed to reach the ceiling. It's the Ryan family. Shameless, Penelope said this. But there was a slight smile on the corner of his mouth, indicating that he had succeeded in his plan. Ryan didn't say anything. St. Mungo's is a hospital. As a hospital it is pretty good. The receptionist in the waiting room on the first floor and the therapist Straw in the newspaper both dared to confront Ryan for their patients even though they knew their jobs depended on him. To them, Bode was just an ordinary Ministry of Magic employee who was hospitalized due to their magic level is only high in healing. It's normal not to notice the cursed item in your pillow. You know, this is the curse of a senior researcher in the Department of Mysteries. And this is also because the Ministry of Magic unilaterally concealed information about their injuries or the patient's specific information. This can be seen from the photos of Neville's parents. But overall, it looks like it has been well cared for at Ryan. Well, indeed, St. Mungo's is really good. Ryan secretly winked at Penelope. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 513, Tired Mr. Weasley. Harry had expected Mr. Weasley to be back soon, since he hadn't actually been working today. After the Order of the Phoenix met again, Mrs. Weasley and Bill returned to the burrow. Happily shared everything there with Harry and the others. He also mentioned that Mr. Weasley had to go to the Ministry of Magic for something and would be back soon. But to Harry's surprise, after the moon was dim and the dinner had been warmed by a dozen spells, Mr. Weasley had not returned. Mrs. Weasley looked anxiously at the grandfather clock from time to time. The longest hand, belonging to Mr. Weasley, always pointed steadily to work. An unknown amount of time had passed, and just when Ron could hardly help dozing off, there was a loud bang, the flames in the fireplace turned green, and Mr. Weasley walked out in a panic. The director's elegant uniform was soaked with sweat, as if he had just finished a marathon chunk of chicken with his hands, and couldn't help complaining, "The Ministry of Magic is very busy right now. The Auror office is considering inviting Frank and his team again. The Experimental Spells Committee and the Magical Maintenance Department are at it again. Molly, you know what a troublemaker Gilbert Whymper is, and how he seems to take pleasure in the misery of others. Their committee happens to be responsible for overseeing the development and use of experimental spells. 2 years ago, He wanted to issue a subpoena to Harry because of his magical red spark charm, MRS. Weasley frowned. What about that smoke bottle of Ron's? He doesn't have the guts to do that. Department all wear navy blue robes and are responsible for the administration and maintenance of the ministry, including deciding whether the enchanted windows in the ministry's headquarters will display, repairing magical errors in various facilities in the Ministry of Magic, such as raining in the office, maintaining the elevators, ensuring that every fireplace in the main hall is equipped with flue powder, and some maintenance of a less magical nature, such as cleaning. You're quite right, Percy. Mrs. Weasley kindly handed Percy a piece of meat pie. She has always been more supportive of her children being like their father, entering the Ministry of Magic and having a decent and stable job. Mr. Weasley on the side continued, in short, Whymper always makes things difficult for Reginald Cattermole of the Magical Maintenance Department within the rules. He said that his weather modification spell was different from the common one and needed to be reported. And every other spell he could think of that might be useful in Cattermole's work. What else? To their normal requests. With reasons to explain magical events to Muggles. The Muggle Liaison Office is responsible for relations between wizards and Muggles. They are both part of the Department of Magical Accidents and Catastrophes. The Office of Misinformation deals with the worst magical Muggle mediation committee. Compared with the Office of Misinformation, it is responsible for handling minor incidents. The Muggle Liaison Office is out in the field, always traveling around the country to modify the memories of Muggles who know about the magical world too. It performs clerical duties and works at a fixed location, the Muggle British Prime Minister's office. But the problem is that these are just conventions. Their responsibilities actually overlap. To make matters worse, the Office of Misinformation, which has greater powers and overlaps with the work of two other departments, is actually part of another department, the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures at the Ministry of Magic. The Department of Magical Accidents and Catastrophes has been arguing with the department for Ginny couldn't help but became interested after hearing Mr. Weasley's long speech. Because wizards were once classified as magical creatures. Mr. Weasley shrugged. Also, within the Department of Magical Accidents and Catastrophes, the Muggle Mediation Committee and the Muggle Liaison Office often argue over who should go out on field missions. Anyway, I now understand how exhausted the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement was at that time. I don't even have time to study all that wonderful Muggle technology. But Dad, except for the Aurora office, none of the things you mentioned actually belong to your department. If it really needs to be dealt with, should it be the boss of their superior department who handles it? Or the Minister of Magic? Percy, who was most sensitive to the division of responsibilities in the Ministry of Magic, asked in confusion. That would be great. Our department is also responsible for formulating laws, rules and regulations. The Aurora office is considering re-inviting Frank and his team, which is not in compliance with regulations. I need to modify it or give special approval. Wimple caused trouble for Cattermole without violating the rules. This is clearly a problem with the system, and the advisory team, and I need to make all the changes. The overlapping work of the Muggle Mediation Committee, the Muggle Liaison Office, and the Misinformation Office also requires me to redistribute them, and then notify their superior departments to hold a meeting. Mr. Weasley said tiredly. Mrs. Weasley couldn't help but walk forward and hugged Mr. Weasley, holding his head in her arms. Harry and the others consciously looked at the food on the table. Even Fred and George. Thanks to classmates 20220115110332204 and Taishi Umisol for their monthly tickets, and other classmates for their recommendations and subscriptions. Chapter 514 Neville's Letter. There was actually one thing Arthur Weasley hadn't said. In fact, these are not what make him most tired. Instead, they came to greet the officials from the German and Austrian Ministries of Magic who came with Grindelwald. In fact, these matters should be handled by the Department of International Magical Cooperation. If nothing else, it should be the Minister of Magic. The Minister of Magic has a dedicated logistics department. The Office of the Minister's Advisor to the Ministry of Magic, the Office of the Senior Deputy Minister of Magic, and the Office of the Assistant Minister of Magic all have sufficient manpower to receive guests. But in order to prevent the spread of Grindelwald's dangerous ideas, only he, who knew about this and was in a high enough position, could receive him. Thinking of this, Arthur Weasley couldn't help but shook his head. However, he forgot one thing. That is, his head was still buried in his wife's arms. Hey, Arthur. The children are still here. Molly Weasley said in a sweet voice. Her face was as red as her husband's thinning hair. Cough, 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 cough. The dining table was now filled with coughing sounds. I'm leaving first. As soon as Draco finished speaking, he disappeared from the spot. Me too, I'm full. Seeing this, the others followed suit and disappeared beside the dining table on the third-floor landing. In front of Harry's room, Ron was holding a pile of feet. Here. It's so late, why don't you go back to your room and rest? Just like Bill, Charlie and the others. Draco teased. You just yawned. Fred and George even went back to their rooms obediently. When Ginny said this, there was an explosion in George's room on the fourth floor. Fred. George. What are you doing so late at night? Mrs. Weasley's voice came from downstairs. She was very angry. Today, Arthur finally agreed to hand in his homework, but the result was nothing. Mom. We're just practicing magic as Dumbledore asked. School is almost starting. This is all Ron's fault. Yes. He said that Krum will also participate in the competition. Fred and I are so anxious. I can't fall asleep if I don't practice magic before going to bed every day. Fred and George just finished speaking. Percy's voice suddenly rang out. They are both lying. They must be up to those tricks again. I think they are rushing to make enough to sell to other schools. You. Our slandering model student Percy always dislikes us. Then there was the sound of Mrs. Weasley thumping up the stairs. Boom. Harry and the other three hurriedly opened the door and hid in Harry's room. I can't fall asleep even if I yawn 100 times now. I really hope I can hear the sound of Fred being spanked. Ron put his foot in his hand aside and pressed against the door, looking gloating. Ron, I remember you also had a hand in Fred's business. How come you? Harry sighed, looking at Ron. What happened to this child? You have to know that besides liking to be in the spotlight, Ron also likes eating in gold galleons. But faced with the risk that his business might be ruined by the furious Mrs. Weasley, Ron actually put down his food and just wanted to watch the show. If I were Fred and George and knew you were like this, I would rather turn my business into a stagnant pool than sell your smoke bottles. Draco also looked at Ron with contempt. Ginny, who was next to Harry, didn't say anything, but judging from her eyes, she probably thought the same thing as Draco. I spent this summer working overtime at both of their places making smoke bottles, so I didn't have time to spend with Harry. Now that school is about to start, the number of smoke bottles is already enough for the two of them to sell. What they are working on in George's room must be their own product. It has little to do with me. And didn't you just hear it? The moment the accident happened, they both wanted to put the blame on me. Ron said this, but he still moved away from the door. A look of indignation on his face. However, when he turned around, he soon discovered something on Harry's pillow that no one else had noticed. Harry, what is that? Let me see. Harry followed the direction Ron pointed and looked towards his bed. A letter. Whose? Forward even faster than Harry's real girlfriend Ginny, he pressed his whole body against Harry's back, and taking advantage of being a head taller than Harry, he looked directly at the letter in Harry's hand. Dear Harry, stay away from my boyfriend. You have a girlfriend, Ron Weasley. Ron had just said Harry when Ginny grabbed the back of his collar and pulled him away from Harry. You should have paid more attention. Draco said sarcastically as he walked slowly past Ron. In his opinion, Ron's bad habit of physical contact with Harry should have been changed long ago. Especially since Ron is British and a loyal fan of Dumbledore. Pay attention to what? Harry's my brother, so what's wrong with me being close to him? Ginny always likes to make a fuss. I didn't expect you to be like this, Draco. Ron rubbed his throat in dissatisfaction, because his collar was pulled just now, and it was very uncomfortable. By the way, who sent the letter? Ron asked. Without turning around, Harry said, it's Neville. Harry? Is he going to invite us to his house? Ron guessed. No, he's coming to us. Just let me know. Harry said in surprise. What? Neville, I would definitely stick with my parents all day long. Draco touched his chin, thinking. Let me see it. Ginny laid the letter flat on the table and casually pushed Ron's foot aside. Ron and Draco also came over. Dear Harry, hello Harry, it's been 23 hours since we last saw each other. You should have seen the news in the newspaper that my parents have regained consciousness. Ron's parents, Dumbledore and others also came to my house. They talked about a lot, and the name Grindelwald came up among them. It is said that he used an alias and pretended to be a visiting professor at Durmstrang person. He's actually targeting Harry. Ron once again lost his temper before his decent girlfriend Ginny could lose her temper. Ginny seemed to be hesitant to speak, and her expression was very interesting. Thanks to Taishi Yumasilk and Gugugwa for their monthly tickets, and other classmates for their recommendations and subscriptions. Chapter 515 Ron's Suspicion. Ron felt like he was feeling a little weird lately. While waiting for Neville to come, he discovered that Ginny had, for the first time ever, asked to leave from the Quiddler, saying she wanted to accompany Harry. But she's not the guy who clings to you all the time. But, as long as he got close, no matter what Ginny was busy with, she would come out from nowhere and run to Harry's side. Bottle had been completed during the first half of the summer vacation. He had more time to play with Harry. This also made him sure that it was not an illusion or a coincidence. Ron thought time would heal everything. Wasn't Ginny the same when Harry first came to their house? Even if Draco didn't tell him why, everything would turn out well as time went on. But he was wrong. In his room, accompanied by the sound of ghouls banging on steel pipes in the attic, Draco flushed as he adjusted his robes, to smooth out the wrinkles and trying to cover up the exposed skin. "Ron, are you crazy?" Draco was very dissatisfied when he was suddenly dragged upstairs and locked in Ron's room. "I'm not crazy. There must be something wrong." Ever since Neville arrived the other day, Harry had changed. He no longer suddenly lost his mind and made out with Ginny. On the contrary, he was outside the house, in the mountains and fields, secretly hanging out with Neville all day, doing something unknown. "I think there might be something wrong with Harry." Then he looked at Draco on the side and said, "Draco, you have to help me. Although I don't want to admit it, when it comes to scheming and how people interact with each other, I'm afraid you understand it better. You and Ginny really are brother and sister." Draco couldn't help but applaud. "What do you mean?" Ron rubbed the back of his head in confusion. Draco looked at Ron as if he was a fool. "You didn't realize it all along, did you? Let me give you a friendly reminder, Dumbledore and Grindelwald." Ron slapped his thigh. "Gorgon. How could Ginny think that? It's just the same as you are now." Draco raised his eyebrows. Whether he had learned the Fenrir Avatar. Remember. Facing Ron's question, Draco agreed in cooperation. It wasn't that he believed Ron's guess. Rather, he wanted to see how outrageous Ron could be. "That's right, Spicy. You may not have noticed because you were not Harry and Neville's roommate. But I am. I noticed that Harry disappeared after we discussed Neville's size. Laughing. Their relationship also inexplicably progressed a lot. This behavior continued until the end of the semester. Draco originally came to listen to Ron's analysis with the intention of listening to a joke. However, the more Ron spoke, the more serious his expression became. Besides, don't you find it weird? After his parents returned to normal, Neville actually chose to come to Harry? This doesn't make sense. Even if his parents are busy, they will go home at night. Why does he have to come to our house? Are his parents as busy as my dad? Ron continued. Yes. How could they be as busy as Mr. Weasley? Draco nodded quickly. So, combined with the fact that now he and Harry disappear whenever they have time, there's only one conclusion. Ron looked at Draco. However, before Draco could return, the door opened with a bang. Neville Longbottom is having an affair with Harry Potter. It was Ginny. It was the first time Ron saw someone's hair standing up. But Ginny was now. The fiery red hair kept flying in the air like a burning flame. Ginny, don't worry, Ron and I will help you. Draco wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He had a feeling that if he said the wrong thing, he would be killed by an angry Ginny. Ha, ha. Neville panted and stood leaning on his sword. The originally lush grass was now bare, with traces of people being dragged. The naked upper body shines brightly under the sun and sweat. Huff, huff. Harry fell directly to the ground, covering his eyes with one hand to block the scorching sun, while the other hand still tightly grasped a huge sword without an edge. He had also taken off his robe and hung it on a tree a dozen feet away. He was very surprised now. After he'd adjusted the network beast mask 2 days ago, he thought that except Ryan, there was no other wizard in the world who could competition with him physically. Notice the fleeting sense of danger related to swords. Harry supported himself with his hands, sat up, and looked at Neville. The tangled, bulging muscles on Neville's body made him suspect that the magic that Ryan taught Neville was specifically for muscle training. It has nothing to do with swords at all. You know, after he swallowed the potion, had his blood transfused, forged his heart, absorbed another self, and digested Voldemort's power, he was only at this level. How could Neville reach such a level with that so-called sword magic? Is the way of the sword something that does not change? Only with this strength can I swing the sword with this physique. I can cooperate perfectly with this sword with this magic power. I can break all the curses. When Neville said the last part, he had already jumped high, holding a huge sword without a blade, and slashing. But in front of him was a column of water. The handle of the wand in his hand was inserted into the fertile soil. After the wand was separated from its owner, clear spring water as thick as a wrist still shot into the sky from the tip of the wand. Hey! With a loud roar, the water flow that could not be cut off was cut off in half, and Neville fell heavily on the grass with a giant sword. The smooth and flat cross-section is like an invisible membrane, blocking the upward flow of water. The water spread out in all directions, splashing around only. Like a fountain, Neville and Harry, both shirtless, were now enveloped in mist rainbows. The cool feeling of the cold water droplets touching their burning skin made Harry and Neville scream out. The two looked at each other and smiled, saying nothing. Chapter 516 Unresolved Doubts. All of the above is from Harry's own perspective. But this is not the case from Ron and others' perspective. The timeline goes back to when Draco agreed to help Ginny catch her cheating. Facing Draco, and Ron's support, Ginny decided to cut the Gordian knot. Sometimes people just have to be more carefree wilderness, surrounded by towering mountains. A place that muggles find difficult to set foot in. When she was young, Ginny was often taken there to play by her brothers. And when they arrived there after traveling through mountains and rivers, they saw the two men looking at each other shirtless in the mist and rainbows with satisfied smiles on their faces. The grass was full of traces of the two men's fight. Harry Potter. Breaking voice, how dare you? Ginny held the wand with both hands and pointed it directly at Harry. Harry, what are you? Well, if you really want to, you can come to me. Even if you didn't come to me, why would you do this while wearing the pants Ginny gave you? It's okay to take it off, there's no one else here. Ron said earnestly. Draco quietly moved several steps away from Ron. He was indeed moved by Ron's words just now, and even believed what Ron said. But after walking for such a long time, he gradually calmed down. Start thinking about whether there are other possibilities. Even after seeing the scene just now, it was really very Dumbledore. But is there a possibility that they are just competing with each other? After all, both of their pants were still on. What's wrong? Neville stepped slightly with his left foot, and the ground suddenly collapsed into a hole as big as a plate, and a man appeared on the left side of his wand, pulled out the wand with his right hand and held it in his hand. This action happened in a flash, and before Ron and the others could react, Neville had already grasped the wand. What's wrong? Why didn't you ask why you did that when you lied to my boyfriend? Did you train your muscles to seduce men? Ginny turned her wand towards Neville, but her only remaining rationality prevented her from casting the next spell. There was no airflow caused by high-speed movement, no collapse of the ground when applying force, and even no slight sound. Harry's figure disappeared from the spot, appeared behind Ginny, and hugged her tightly. The magic of the Phoenix made Harry's movement softer and without any worldly air. It won't be as devastating as Neville's. Let me go. Facing Ginny's roar, Harry looked at Ron. What's wrong? Up, and then said, Ron, did you notice that when you were at Hogwarts, you and Neville sneaked out at night and came back together? Plus your recent changes. In addition, after Neville arrived, you returned to your Hogwarts routine, which led Ron and Ginny to suspect that you and Neville had a physical relationship beyond friendship. Unlike Ron's hesitant words, Harry quickly understood what was going on. Neville also relaxed his muscles and put his wand upside down in his pocket. He put the index and middle fingers of his left hand together and gently swung the mud-covered handle of the wand. It was as if an invisible sword had cut off all the mud on the handle of the wand in an instant with amazing skills, revealing the smooth and round handle. Look, I'm just practicing magic with Neville. His magic is too destructive. If you haven't practiced magic like Fenrir's incarnation, or if you're as gifted as me. Harry looked at Draco. He was the only one. Harry hugged Ginny and forcibly threw her in Neville's direction. Let her see Neville's movements clearly. What kind of magic is this? Ron looked at Neville curiously. Neville didn't know that Ron also knew how powerful Ryan was, through going to the moon. Neville was a gifted man. In other words, they are being monitored now. Because Ryan's information contains magic, he cannot reveal it to people who don't know his information. Who knows him mutually can discuss Ryan's existence without surveillance. Why? Do I feel like you are hiding something from me? Draco looked at the four people suspiciously, feeling like an outsider at the moment. Draco doesn't know Ryan, Neville thought, with a knowing smile on his handsome face. 10 minutes later, all four of them looked at Ron, the culprit of the rumor. Harry and Neville were furious. Why was this bastard so obsessed with things all day long? Draco was speechless. As for Ginny, her eyes were full of suspicion. She couldn't help wondering if her brother really had some abnormal feelings for Harry. The rumors about Harry and Neville just now made her even more suspicious. Harry, if you really want, you can come to me. Ron's words just now couldn't stop echoing in Ginny's heart. The fact that Ron, who has low emotional intelligence, can move around now is not as simple as it seems. Ron subconsciously turned his head to look at Ginny because of his genetic instinct for danger. He, who usually couldn't read emotions, saw through the meaning of Ginny's eyes at a glance. Ginny's guess shouldn't be a problem. Ron was just imagining things about Harry and I just now. Neville inexplicably remembered the look Ron had given him just now. It seemed that Ron looked at him more than the others. Do you remember what you just said to Harry? If you really want, you can come to me. Ugh. Ginny looked like she wanted to vomit. Indeed, Ron and Harry cuddled a lot. Draco agreed. I sometimes saw them sleeping in the same bed. At Hogwarts, Ron unilaterally wanted to sleep in Harry's bed. Neville, Harry's roommate, added the final blow. Chapter 517 The Cause of Everything. Everyone let Ron's matter go. Because no matter what Ron is like, at least Harry himself is normal. And Ron has a girlfriend, Lavender. Even if Ron is real, he is a double. However, this also quickly made focus their attention on Neville. Because they didn't quite believe everyone Neville's reason for coming to the Burrow the Grey, Chubby Owl's vision that Sirius had given them. It darted around the garden, making shrill chirps. The gray feathers stood up high, just like a hedgehog with wings. It turned out that the head was chasing something and dodged into a Wellington boot that lay by the door. Zuikiong simply shoved his head into the boot, trying to catch the goblin. Harry could hear the goblin cackling madly inside. Go, this is not good, Zuijan. Ron trotted to the door, grabbed Zuijan's calf and pulled it out. Seeing that it was his master, in the real sense, who had arrived, Zuijiang seemed to be excited and crazy. While he kept making deafening noises, he would occasionally put his head, which he had just touched the shoes, straight into Ron's face. Clean it up. Ron patted the pocket of his robe, and a beam of magic light shot out from his pocket when he was touched by the wand, hitting Zuijian directly. Only then did he feel at ease and gave his face to Zuikiong, letting her stick to him. Zuikiong is just too lively. Ron let go of his hand. Zuikiong pecked Ron's fingers affectionately and flew away noisily again. Not at all like Scabbers, said Ron, and he took out a fat sleeping rat from his other pocket and skillfully stroked Scabbers' fat belly and the part below. Scabbers meant to him, Errol belongs to our family. Zuijan was placed in our house by Sirius. All I have are spots. How old is Scabbers? Harry asked, looking at the ground, trying not to look at the ugly expression Scabbers made when being caressed. I don't know, said Ron. Look at his shiny gray fur. If it weren't for the missing toe, he would look like a newly grown mouse. Just like my Lefebvre. Could it be that your parents discovered you while you were practicing magic? And then, as Neville's eyes flashed with memories, Ginny, who was standing beside him, revealed her true intentions at Harry's signal. Another conjecture was proposed. Neville acknowledged subconsciously. Haha. Neville, why didn't you tell us earlier? Now we all know that you were sent to our house because of practicing magic. Ron laughed triumphantly. Benben's lower abdomen. If that's the case, I can understand it. Seeing my son shirtless and waving a sword around all day, I would also wonder if he is a psychopath. When you don't have time to accompany your child, let someone else accompany him. After all, the Weasley family, which has produced many prefects and has many children, is undoubtedly a good choice. And Mr. Weasley is also a member of the Order of the Phoenix. Neville's roommates are here too, Ron and I. Harry agreed, knowing the inside story of Neville's magic practice. There's something he hasn't said yet. That is, when Neville practices magic, he will place a bunch of billywig worms around his body. But be aware that this can be dangerous, and too many stings can result in uncontrolled levitation for days, and if an allergic reaction occurs, it can lead to permanent levitation. You wouldn't really do that and be discovered by your parents, would you? Draco couldn't help but said in surprise, it's worse. Think about it. You have to know that my father and mother had just woken up. What kind of thing would cause them to send their children somewhere else the next day? Even if that other place is trustworthy, they don't have time for the children." Neville took a deep breath. The memories in my mind kept turning forward, and came to the first 3 days. It was a pleasant night and Mom and Dad came back. The usually quiet home became extremely lively. For the first time, Grandma also dressed very simply. No more staring at worm-eaten fur or walking around with a stuffed eagle all day. After he secretly overheard the conversation between Dumbledore and others, he was discovered and hid in his room. After almost half an hour without anyone coming to look for him, he felt relieved. Off his robe and wore only a pair of shorts. The huge bladeless sword that he usually placed on his knees was also put aside by him. But the scorching air, the joy of his parents' return, and the news he heard, like huge rocks, fell into his calm heart. The indigo color reflected in the lake of my heart and the strange-shaped sword with flowing cloud sails also became blurred under the disturbance of these waves, and in the end, my mother's pushing of the door was the last straw that broke the camel's back. Her exclamation and his restless heart led to a riot among the billowwood bugs in the moment last when he fainted from the pleasure of being stung by the billowwood bugs. What appeared in his eyes was his mother's face, a mixture of and sadness. There was also a rough, particularly voice. "I am familiar with this. Professor Kilborn often relies on these cute little guys worried to drive away illness after being stung. There is a sense of being transported away from all physical and mental worries." He woke up and realized it was Hagrid who said that. He was ordered to go to the burrow. His box of billowwood bugs was also confiscated. But Hagrid secretly told him that he could go to the cabin to get it after school started. Chapter 518, Hagrid's Sudden Visit. I think that might have been what Dumbledore suggested. Playing with billowwood worms has become a trend among young people in Australia. Young wizards floating in the air due to excessive stings can be seen almost everywhere. I think this may have something to do with the information you heard. He wants you to know that Grindelwald has set his sights on Harry and wants Harry to take it seriously. Neville, you just ran into trouble. After listening to the ins and outs of Neville's visit to the burrow, Draco clasped his hands together, crossed his fingers, and placed them on the knees of his thighs that were crossed in a cross-legged posture. He rolled his eyes, looking like a military strategist. I don't think so. After all, Neville's parents are from the old society and they can't accept these new and fashionable things. They must have thought Neville was bored talking about. In terms of thought, he may be more advanced than Voldemort, but in terms of strength, can he compare with Voldemort? Harry even defeated Voldemort. He is not a ball escape bird, referring to Harry's not a coward. The dart bird, a bird that has the ability to suddenly disappear and reappear in another place, is so timid and hides from muggles that they are considered extinct by muggles, is not afraid of Grindelwald. When Ron, a Harry Potter fan, heard Draco praising Grindelwald, he expressed his dissatisfaction. Whatever the reason, I'm already here. Neville sighed. What he remembers most now is not being caught by his mother practicing magic. But it was the expression on his face when his mother discovered his wall, the wall covered with all the candy wrappers his mother gave him when she was crazy. It wasn't that coming to the burrow was bad, but compared to being with my parents, it was like heaven and earth. You guys, come over and help. Neville looked and saw Percy yelling at Ron. He was talking about you, but Neville knew he was talking about Ron. He, Draco, and Harry were all guests, and Percy or anyone else would not take the initiative to ask them to do anything. And Ginny was the treasure of the Weasley family, so Percy couldn't bear to give her up. Ron's sense of the times. What's that? Harry pointed to a huge chair. That's enough to seat several Rons. Even let him and Ginny roll around on it. Who else could be sitting on such a big chair? Draco glanced at Harry as if he were an idiot. Hagrid. Neville noticed in sudden realization. So Hagrid's coming for lunch? Let me see, and Harry followed him into the room. In the living room, Percy was waving his wand, and the tables and chairs were moving in an orderly manner to the center of the garden. Including Hagrid, that's 7. Harry looked at the grandfather clock in the corner. The hands belonging to Mr. Weasley, Charlie, and Bill all pointed steadily to the work position. Is Hagrid the only one coming? Harry turned around and said loudly to Ginny, Draco and Neville behind him. Why am I alone? Where are Fred and George? Ron also raised his wand, and his knives, forks and plates were revolving around him like the moon revolving around the earth. Of course we have serious things to do. Mom has approved of our work. She discovered that our monthly income was higher than Dad's before, and We're also reading books when we're researching new products. The results will be good. Been slower. This isn't fair. Ron angrily walked towards the table and chairs that Percy had just set up. Even in this situation, he still didn't ask Harry and the others for help. Harry felt himself swallowing the fact that Fred and George were developing their own product, which was selling well. I should have gone to help if I had known earlier. Neville said embarrassingly. Don't, we can all use magic now. These chores can be done with a wave of a wand. Harry didn't move either. You know what Harry is like. If he could have helped he would have done so. The reality is that if we guests help, Ron will be scolded by Mrs. Weasley. Draco shrugged. Harry reluctantly agreed. He suddenly felt a little regretful that he could use magic. During last summer vacation, when he was living in the Burrow, which strictly abided by the regulations of the Ministry of Magic, he could not use magic, so he had a reason to help with the housework magic. No matter how difficult the housework is, it is just a matter of magic care. Fortunately, this didn't last long. As the green flames in the fireplace ignited, the arrival of a tall figure dispelled all the boredom. Harry. His thick beard couldn't hide his smile, and his small black beetle-like eyes were full of smiles. Twucking flames. Did it brag? Mom, come and see. It's alive. Fred and George exclaimed in amazement. Percy on the side took a careful look, wondering what kind of spell could have such an effect. What's wrong? As piles of delicious and sumptuous food flew onto the plates they had prepared in advance, Mrs. Weasley rubbed her hands and walked out slowly. Ruber. Why are you here so early? I have a pot of onion soup cooking. Hephaestus? I've never seen one before. Mrs. Weasley glanced over Hagrid's head in surprise. I don't know what's surprising is that the flame is alive, or that Hagrid's hair is intact, so he looks like a Weasley. Harry dared to say that the first second Mrs. Weasley saw Hagrid, she probably thought that the person in front of her was that relative. Isn't it cute? Hagrid touched the flames in his hair. Hello. Mrs. Weasley, it's been a while since I last saw you, Ron, Draco, Harry, Ginny. The flames on Hagrid's head began to spread to the ground, turning into a smaller flame figure, and childish words came out of the flames. Hello, little one. Mrs. Weasley touched Hephaestus' head. I have just been reading the news and the messages in the author group. I originally wanted to take a leave, but I still rushed to finish the coding. Today is a special day. I want to say something, but I am afraid of crossing the red line. Alice P.S. Thanks to Yuchi Jin for the monthly ticket and other classmates for the recommendation and subscription. Chapter 519 Hagrid's Surprise. Under the scorching sun, people chose to dine outdoors without any shade. The clinking of glasses was accompanied by a blazing fire. Hephaestus absorbed all the heat, making it feel as if a taste of cold wind was blowing through them. In such an environment, their foreheads were as smooth as new, without a trace of sweat. Harry and the others were already used to this. Their careers still had curiosity written all over their faces. I guess my heart is also filled with a sense of freshness. Mrs. Weasley on the side couldn't help giggling like a little girl, and from time to time she threw some food into the surrounding flames, that is, into Hephaestus's stomach. Hagrid on the side would give Mrs. Weasley some suggestions from time to time. For example, chicken bones are better than chicken, bread is better than vegetables, and other suggestions on what Hephaestus liked to eat. After they had eaten and drunk their fill, and the sun in the sky became hotter as it passed noon, Harry looked at Hagrid. Hagrid, why are you here today? Two things. Dumbledore and I intended this to be a surprise, Hagrid said mysteriously, blinking. Ron swallowed his mashed potatoes and took a sip of pumpkin juice. One of them is a surprise. Ahem. Hagrid deliberately cleared his throat, prolonged the anticipation, patted the table and said, the professor of magical biology at Hogwarts, it's me now. I knew it. Dumbledore and the others still don't believe me. Neville sighed. Does this have anything to do with you? Did I hear it right? Fred and George couldn't help but look at Neville. Could actually do something they couldn't do before, get a professor to leave, get out of class. This has nothing to do with your billywig worms, didn't you notice? The textbooks have been changed. This must have been before Neville was caught playing with bugs. Harry, I thought you could guess it. Hagrid looked a little disappointed. Of course. I knew that. Harry looked at Ron. Have known this a long time ago. Who else but Hagrid would let us get a book that bites? Hagrid, Ron always talks like this. Ginny glanced at Ron fiercely, and then changed her tone to a sweet and toothacheing tone that Harry had never heard before. Such a useful book was actually recommended by you, Hagrid. We thought that Professor Kilborn had learned from his mistakes and was going to use more professional books as teaching materials. I'm not as good as you say. Professor Kilborn is more professional. Hagrid's eyes narrowed into slits, and a slight blush appeared on his face. Then, a little hope appeared in his eyes, and he looked at Harry and the others. So you have read all the contents of the book? Of course. Ron, who realized belatedly that he had said the wrong thing, spoke first. He slapped the table and stood up, looking very proud. I still remember it now. The arrogant hippogriff, the evil elf, and the rare cloaking monster. As Ron named the magical creatures in the book one by one, Hagrid's expression became more relaxed. Huh? It seems that what Ginny said just now was not flattering me. Hagrid even thought so inadvertently. Ron, sitting at the corner of the table, became more confident. Judging from the change in Hagrid's expression tells you have to fight it every time before you watch it. Harry and the others beside him also agreed in agreement. So, there's no one of you who can open this book. Hagrid's smile faded. The smiles on the faces of the people around them couldn't help but stiffen. However, Ron lived up to expectations and didn't notice anything. We opened it, didn't we? How could I have known all these magical creatures before? Ron looked puzzled the content. But can't we just sort out these books? Hagrid showed the same puzzled expression as Ron, as if this was the most obvious thing in the world. Look, he pulled a green book filled with notes from his pocket. As soon as he took it out, though, the book wanted to bite, but Hagrid slid his index finger down the spine, and the book trembled, then opened and lay quietly and his hand softened. Ginny hesitated for a moment and then said, Is it possible that Harry's just too good? You've all seen how nimble he is on his broomstick, haven't you? This noisy book may require others to think and finally find a way to sort it out. But to Harry, it was as easy as picking up an apple from the table. And we naturally don't need to think about finding other solutions that can be seen at a glance. Phew. Breathed a sigh of relief. What a shame, these books are so ridiculous and you missed the chance to find a way to quiet them down on your own. Ron wanted to say something but was interrupted by Harry's elbow. Hagrid. These? Hagrid grabbed a handful from his coat pocket again, and when he stretched out his hand, there were a few pebbles on it. These are good things. I got them from the professor in Castellablush. What is this? Harry counted them and found there were 5 in total. Then Fred, George, and Percy should not have any. This is the seed. But only young wizards under the age of 14 can use it. Hagrid stroked his beard and glanced awkwardly at Percy and the others. How do you use it? Eat it. Ron said. Castribus? Is it their unique magic item? Like the mainstream magic ones nowadays? Draco narrowed his eyes. Almost. But this isn't food, Ron. Hagrid glanced at Ron who was drinking pumpkin juice. Being familiar with Ron, he knew that this was a sign before Ron ate. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 520 The Mysterious Tree Shepherd. Seeds, do they have to be planted in the soil? Harry couldn't help but picked up a red seed. In his eyes, the seeds were as red as blood, as if beating with his heartbeat. Have you heard of the tree shepherd? Hagrid did not answer directly, but had a mysterious smile on his face. Look at the seeds in Hagrid's hand. Could this be related to the tree shepherd? The tree shepherd is a byproduct of the ancient wizard's research into immortality. The specific idea is actually very simple and plain. That is, the normal lifespan of a wizard is no more than 200 years old, while the lifespan of trees is very long. The tree shepherd is to link his life with the life of the tree, so as to gain a longer lifespan. Hagrid said. But Ron was a little bit incredulous. These are for us? For us to become tree shepherds? Is this more precious than the philosopher's stone? You know, Nicholas Flamel only lived for about 600 years. Hagrid hasn't finished his words yet. Harry looked at Ron helplessly, then at the red seeds in his hand. This is hollyberry, a species of holly. Holly can live for 3 years if it's maintained normally. If it's really like what you understand, Ron, then my lifespan has been shortened, hasn't it? If I'm not mistaken, the seeds in your hand, Hagrid, are seeds of holly, cherry, willow, yew, and hawthorn. Draco on the side guessed confidently. How did you I know. This is related to the material of our wands. Ron said belatedly. So my seeds have the shortest lifespan. Harry couldn't help shook but his head and laughed. Harry had learned about wand lore and even studied wand trees. Although wand trees are different from their counterparts, like wizards and muggles, their branches can be used to make wands. But their lifespan remains the same as their muggle counterparts. Willow, the material of Ron's wand, generally has a lifespan of 20 to 30 years, and a few species can live for more than 100 years. The second is Navi cherry wood, which generally has a lifespan of 50 to 70 years. If well cared for, it may survive for up to 100 years. Next is the Draco hawthorn tree. This tree has a long lifespan, usually living 60 to 70 years without aging, and some can even live for more than 150 years lifespan. The oldest yew tree today is near the cemetery of St. Snog's Church in Wales, UK, and is at least 5 years old. It is said that the wood of his brother's wand is yew. The tree shepherd genre was a failed attempt. Just like the Dumbledore family tried to achieve immortality through the phoenix. But while the quest for an extension of lifespan failed, the tree herders discovered that as the contracted trees grew, they also died. Their magic power will also transform accordingly. But this is only limited to young wizards, whose magic is still very active. According to Professor Castrobuse, they still contain the original, pure vitality that remains from the womb. Only this kind of magic can transform the tree according to the contract. Hagrid said. Die? So does that mean the seeds with the shortest lifespan are the best? What about Ginny's? It's very likely that Ginny is dead, but her tree is still alive. Ron asked quickly. He also knew a thing or two about yew trees. After all, yew is the material of Voldemort and his sister's wands. Harry had done some research and he had asked out of curiosity before. Not entirely, Ron. Then let me tell you about the knowledge of the contract tree. Hagrid said and took out a notebook. The contract tree is the tree that the wizard contracts with. But only the wand tree can be used as a contract tree. Furthermore, mature trees will reject specious wizards, and only tree will be willing to accept the magic power of wizards. This means that tree shepherds need to find tree species that can grow into magic wand trees from tens of millions of tree species. And it also needs to be in harmony with the wizard's magic. These two requirements were like a natural barrier that blocked the development of the tree herders, to the point where their art was lost. As time progressed, tree shepherds received inspiration from wand makers have discovered that the botricle can easily identify wand trees, and the same can be said of the species. The tree species that are suitable for wizards are often the wood of their wand's shepherd system. Although the wizard's magic power will transform with the natural death of the contract tree, this is not a necessary condition. If the lifespan of the contract tree is too long, the tree shepherd can also undergo magical transformation and advance through the growth cycle of the contract tree in the 4 seasons. But this depends on the talent of the tree shepherd himself. Over the past 100 years, among the many tree shepherds, the best ones even underwent transformation when the contract tree just sprouted. But there are also stupid people, because the lifespan of the contract tree is too long, and it has never undergone a transformation until its death. Hagrid looked at the notebook and read it word by word. So, these trees will be connected to us after they are planted? What if they are planted, destroyed by someone else? Will it have an impact on us? Draco immediately thought of the disadvantages. In other words, the moment he heard the introduction, he imagined a tree shepherd enemy and thought of preventing the enemy from growing by destroying the enemy's contract tree. Hagrid looked at Draco and said, "What about the curse? Cursing through the connection between the tree and the wizard." Fred and George, as outsiders, speculated. Wizards can unilaterally cut off this kind of connection. Hagrid gave Fred and George a displeased look. What does transformation mean? Have you made any progress in magic? Harry and Neville asked respectively. They both have a desire to improve their strength. You all know that every wizard has his or her own special areas of expertise. After the magic power transformations, a new ability will be born by combining with the field in which one is good at. Like Metamorphmagus, it does not require a wand and is an innate ability that is like instinct. I asked the professors at Castrobuse, but these birth abilities are as important to Tree Shepherd as the color of his underwear. Only a few are willing to reveal it. Because the abilities they were born with are not very outstanding and are very common. Harry asked. Hagrid thought for a moment and then said, "Let me give you an example. There was a wizard who was particularly good at creating fire spells. Well, like a blazing fire. His ability after the transformation of magic is that he can create fire directly without a wand. Chapter 521 Ceremony Under the Banyan Tree. The moonlight tonight is very dim, hiding shyly in the dark cloud bed, with half of its face revealed, half hidden. Under the dark, mottled, strange and rugged shadows of the trees, a tall figure was giggling strangely. But as I looked through the moonlight that filtered through the gaps between the branches, a large, kind face was revealed. It was Hagrid, and he was delighted that everything was complete. His tall figure blocked the 5 flower pots filled with black soil, a bottle of green liquid, and 5 relatively short figures in front of him. "You should all be fine," Hagrid said a little guiltily. This is his first time as a teacher. Although the entire process of becoming a tree shepherd has been successfully done thousands of times in Castrobus. But Hagrid was still a little nervous. "No problem, we have chanted the spell over our seeds hundreds of times. This is Ron, and we all sing according to the pronunciation in the magical phonetic table. This is Neville, Harry. Checked this and there's no problem with it," Ginny and Draco said in unison. They all had great trust in Harry. Harry on the side also agreed. He felt that they had successfully connected with the seeds. Although the magic thread was intermittent and seemed about to break, it became more and more obvious with every step. Clouds in the sky that covered the moon seemed to be moved away by an invisible giant hand. The bright moonlight began to penetrate the green liquid through the branches. The liquid began to bubble, as if it were boiling. The trees behind him began to rustle and move their branches. Under Hagrid's control, the invisible and intangible magic connected the moonlight, trees, and solution. Soon as he finished speaking, the 5 people, the thin, almost invisible hair in the 5 flower pots acted like straws, with streams of liquid pouring in from the tips of the hair, and the flower pots gradually stopped vibrating. Until the last drop of liquid was emptied, the flower pot returned to calm. "Is that all right?" Ron breathed a sigh of relief. Eyes. None of the children of balding middle-aged Arthur Weasley had said anything yet. There's indeed one step missing. Hagrid put the empty glass bottle aside and put his hands together. A golden circle with sparks flashed around the banyan tree. "That's it. Hell, I had almost forgotten about goblins and other creatures that might break in while we were gone. Well, let me think, what else? It should be fine now. You will be able to see the sprouts tomorrow morning. Hagrid, you're becoming more and more like an African wizard. You cast every spell with both hands together," Ron exclaimed. "Wait, what if it rains at night? I knew that these pots had to stay with a medium, the ficus tree, until they sprouted. But we can build a canopy for this tree. If the rain really has an impact on the growth of the contract tree. I have offered my precious hair with great difficulty. I cannot waste this opportunity." At this point, Draco seemed to feel something was wrong. "Well, these tree species are also very precious. I am like this because of them." "Correct. It's not because of the hair." Draco, Hagrid shook his head happily. "Brazil is a rainforest, and rain is the most common thing there. I did my homework in advance. Unless you drop these flower pots on the ground, or eat the seeds," Hagrid looked at Ron, "or burn them, rain will not affect the growth and germination of the contract tree at all. What should we do after these trees sprout?" Ginny looked at her own trees. But she is still thinking about awakening some interesting abilities. Can a long-lived tree like the yew really continue to grow in a pot without being affected? "Did I say that?" Hagrid stammered, panicking as he took out a notebook he had taken from his pocket that day and began to flip through it frantically. "I found it. It is said here that 1 month after germination, it can be transplanted into the soil. Don't worry, Harry, I've already found a place for you in the Forbidden Forest." Hagrid wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. "Forbidden Forest? That's great. Nothing that happens in the Forbidden Forest escapes your eyes, Hagrid." Harry agreed. It was an easy task for Hagrid to protect the few trees in the Forbidden Forest. "Are you saying this literally, that nothing in the Forbidden Forest escapes Hagrid's eyes?" asked Neville, who knew nothing about Hagrid's abilities. Ever since he visualized the strange-shaped sword, he had possessed a strange intuition and the power to see through people's hearts. In the information Ryan gave, this is called the sword. Heart is clear. It is a state that comes after becoming proficient. And just now he understood the meaning of Harry's words. It's true, Hagrid's magic has probably transformed, and he doesn't rely on these trees anymore. He awakened several abilities. Well, extraordinary insight, but it seems to be limited to the Forbidden Forest. It's not so exaggerated outside. And the ability to give life to inanimate objects. That's how Hephaestus came to be inanimate objects. Because giving an object permanent life would take up a share of its own magical source. And the power to control magical creatures. The giant eight-eyed spider that Hagrid raised became much more obedient after Hagrid's transformation. Ron said proudly idea that Hagrid was right. What happened to Hagrid wasn't a magical transformation at all, it was more like an awakening of his bloodline. Okay, it's time to rest at this late hour. My scalp needs sleep and good care. Doesn't Harry's Holly have the shortest lifespan? Won't we know in 2 or 3 years? Let's see what abilities Harry awakens. Draco stroked his hair again. Chapter 522, Parallel Imported Immortal. The timeline goes back to before Hagrid introduced the Tree Shepherd system. Thousands of miles away in Smith Castle, 3 figures in the study were sinking deeply into the cool and soft sofa. But they didn't sleep. On the contrary, they were very alert and were watching the scenes rolling in the clouds. Snow-white cloud beds were floating in the air above the spacious and luxurious study were 5 plump, pebble-like seeds placed on the table. Merlin's beard. Are you serious, little brat? This old man is almost 3 years old. Kate was very excited. But his whole body seemed to be stripped of its bones and did not move at all. It's not that there's anything wrong with Kate. But this sofa is so comfortable. It's as if the filing inside has been replaced with ice water, but it's not as weak as a water bed. When you lie on it, the sofa will release weak, just right electric current from time to time, hitting the sore and weak parts of your body. It's like a few massage masters with decades of experience are giving you a full-body spa. Even the fat cat Jerry and Nagini couldn't help but shrink in size and lay next to Penelope and Ryan respectively. As for Dr. Hamster Flywheel, it is just as its name suggests, running in circles in the flywheel, venting the excess energy caused by the overflowing magic power. It's a pity that Fleur has returned to France. She won't be able to enjoy this sofa much. Penelope's eyes were dazed and she was so comfortable that she cried out and touched the fat Jerry. It's not that she's uninterested in the picture. But Kate had already asked the questions she wanted to ask in advance. Ryan rested the back of his head on Nagini's cold snake and looked lazily at Penelope. It's Gabrielle Long. Fiorin is a sister slave, so she would agree even if Gabrielle wanted to take the stars off. Then he turned around and looked at Kate, who was almost invisible on the sofa. He is the only successful tree shepherd. He achieved immortality with a simple idea. Then his contract tree must be a long-lived tree species like the cedar. Wait, is that the Patriarch of Floresta tree he just mentioned? Kate patted the sofa excitedly and sat up. That's not right. Kate be cultivated by selecting tree species, so if you say so, it should be 3,000 years old. Penelope retorted. However, because her voice was too loud, Jerry, who was sleeping, was annoyed and shook his black tail. Kate turned to look at Ryan. Little brat, you be the judge. Ryan rolled his eyes. He had always noticed that books recording trees usually only describe their appearance and how to cultivate them. Unless it is a short-lived tree of about 100 years, or a long-lived tree of thousands of years. For trees with lifespan limits in the middle, the lifespan limits remain unclear. It was even confused with the dormancy period of its seeds, the length of time the tree seeds can be stored before germination, and this was not correct. Only wand makers who have personal contact with a tree, or plant enthusiasts in the Muggle world, will know something about it. Those who simply want to understand are often confused by vague information. As for why this immortal who is a tree shepherd is also confused, it is entirely because although holly is a perennial plant, it can generally live for a long time. But if raised at home, they will die after 2 or 3 years. Unless you really understand the habits of holly trees, you can only keep them for more than 10 years. The contract tree is undoubtedly domesticated, different from the regular wizards who choose to travel around after graduation. A total otaku in the wizarding world. It is normal that they have limited knowledge since this pre-internet age. This immortal is one of them. Then this old man's contract tree must not be a holly tree. Kate curled her lips in disdain, and it is unheard of that a pine, the one's owner, died young. It's very interesting. Ryan smiled. He stared at the white-bearded old man in the picture, as if he wanted to stare him to death. I don't think that's the most interesting thing. The tree shepherd genre originated in Brazil, and so did the bromeliad. Is there such a thing as unknown destiny? Better. Kate's eyes sparkled. Then this guy must be very creative. No wonder he can achieve the origin of this school, immortality. Penelope exclaimed. She knew that a straight-grained pine wanda always chose a free-spirited, Independent owner who might be considered unsociable, interesting, or mysterious. Pine wands want to be used creatively, and unlike many other ones they are not at all averse to new spells or methods. It is also one of the ones that are very sensitive to silent spells. Kate has nothing to do with so-called destiny. It was all because I have awakened an interesting ability. And I mean pine trees, not fruit-bearing bromeliads. Pineapples aren't even considered trees according to Muggle. Ryan couldn't classification help but roll his eyes again. Oh. What a pity. I thought there would be fresh pineapples to eat. But as for the pine tree, I know. His ability must be related to the original simple idea of the tree shepherd. The wizard shares the long life of the trees. Kate was disappointed at first, and then said unconvinced. You guessed right this time. This immortal was named Castor Pollici, and the famous pharmacist Labascio Pollici was his grandson. But what their family is good at is not the so-called potions. On the contrary, they are good at illusory contracts desire to reach the ultimate realm of the tree shepherd genre so that he can share the life of the contract tree. The pine tree is a long-lived tree species that can generally live over 1,200 years old. If it is well maintained, it can live even longer. The longest-lived pine tree known is 5,000 years old. Just like that, he arrived at the realm of the immortals. Ryan sighed. Chapter 523, Prolonging life is actually very simple. In the magical world, it is actually not difficult to extend your life. The magic level must reach the minimum level of Hogwarts professors, that is, reaching level 4 in a certain field. Potions, transfiguration, spells, alchemy, and every other field actually have the possibility of longevity after reaching level 4. If you have a method of immortality based on the corresponding field, becoming an immortal will be a very easy thing, not actually nonsense. It doesn't refer to a magic potion that can cure untreatable diseases. It means exactly what it says, prevent death and gain immortality. Potions is a shortcut to brewing immortals. All it takes is for an expert in alchemy to develop a formula for immortality. Dark arts, a wizard who reaches level LV3 can become an immortal just like it is easy for people to become bad, but difficult to become good compared to white magic and ordinary magic. Black magic is easier to learn. It is a kind of magic that is cruel to oneself and others. The Secrets of Cutting-Edge Black Magic introduces in detail a simple method of immortality, the Horcrux. It can be made by taking the life of a muggle or wizard under the magic of Horcruxes. The lives of wizards and muggles are equal. In fact, from this we can see that Voldemort is not a true purist. Otherwise, he would definitely choose the wizard's life as a sacrifice for the Horcrux. In the original world line, Nagini became a Horcrux by taking the life of a muggle old man named Frank. Instead of poor, hapless witch Bertha Jorkins. Ahem, I got off track. In short, immortality does not actually depend on the level of magic. It's about whether you have the idea and creativity. Whether the creativity is down to earth is more important than the level of magic. The magic of Slytherin wizards is very out of touch with reality. The wizard's magic level is required to be very high. Furthermore, if one wants to learn by following the instructions, one must have both spells and dark magic close to level 6, the realm of demigod. The same is true of the wizarding world's current belief that Ravenclaw invented the wraithization of wizards. The requirements are even higher. It can only be touched by a demigod wizard. There is also the Philosopher's Stone of alchemical immortality. It's not out of touch. It was completely accidental. A miracle that was born accidentally. Even Nicholas Flamel himself couldn't replicate it. But in a way, the existence of ghosts and the afterlife makes wizards not interested in immortality to die naturally and be with other relatives and friends who have passed away long ago than to live for a long time in the real world with their descendants. Sooner or later, your descendants will come to accompany you. In the eyes of some great wizards, the afterlife is not a secret. Wizards also understand its mechanism, equality, and the paradise-like atmosphere. For example, the British Ministry of Magic has the Hall of the Dead to study death. Beyond the veil in that room is a one-way street to the afterlife. Ryan regards as his opponent, Ignatius Peverell. The afterlife under his leadership is equal, without oppression, and just like heaven. It is because of this that he became the greatest divine wizard. One by one, the immortals chose death out of loneliness, and under his guidance it can be said that if Ryan did not have another identity, the descendant of Antioch Peverell, he would never have faced the god of death. If the position of the god of death is compared to the throne, the others, Potter, Longbottom, Smith, and Gaunt, are royals who have no right of inheritance. Ryan, Neville is the royal family with the right of inheritance. Harry is the legitimate heir. While Voldemort was a traitor, he killed James Potter, a blood relative with royal status. He also had royal status and was once an heir. The heir of the god of death is actually very easy to identify. That is when a parent faces a death crisis. Voldemort, the former heir, lost interest in living after his mother gave birth to him and sent him to an orphanage. Out of her world weariness, she transformed her magic power into a curse and killed herself. And he himself is the death crisis of his father. Neville had the best luck, perhaps because he was not born on the 31st, but on the 30th, which was a little short of the predicted end of July compared to Harry and Ryan, who were born on the 31st. Cause the parents are just crazy. Unlike Ryan and Harry's parents, who passed away. And all this is caused by the current god of death reselecting him successor. The Messiah prophecy is not just about salvation, but about selecting the true successor. Neville and Ryan were just runners-up, but their parents still suffered misfortune. Harry's orthodoxy was marked early on. If the world line had been followed, he would have obtained the Deathly Hallows and died bravely, defeating Voldemort the ridiculous running-in. So under his evil taste and influence, Harry Potter will always have the identity of a Horcrux and share eternal life with a diary Tom Riddle. The only possibility for him to die is that his longing for his mother will be cut off in the upcoming 3rd grade. Lily Evans will return to the world under the power of resurrection of the god of death wielded by Cadmus Peverell, the previous true heir to the god of death. He is also the son of the previous god of death, unlike Ryan and others who are descendants of the previous generation, the legendary second of the 3 brothers, and the ancestor of Gaunt. GGG. Little brat. What are you grinning at? Ryan came to his senses and saw Kate standing in front of him with her hands on her hips, looking confused. I just thought this custard Pollach is too watery. Relying on the most basic magic transformation of the Tree Shepherd School, he achieved immortality. Ryan said seriously. Oh, I want to ask, can Penelope and I become tree shepherds? We also want to awaken some interesting abilities. Kate asked shyly. She had just heard from Castor Pollach that only wizards under the age of 14 were eligible. And she and Penelope are both 17 years old. Penelope, you have a photographic memory. The Tree Shepherd system is of little use to you. If you really want, I can spend a few seconds to perfect this system. Ryan touched his chin. After he perfected the Tree Shepherd profession, his magic power could be transformed a second time, so Penelope's useless photographic memory could be further improved. But Ryan felt it was a bit useless, because he could achieve the same effect by drinking more of his magic potion. Furin is a good example. She has always taken it orally. Chapter 524, Introduction to the Phoenix Incarnation Plus version. The Tree Shepherd system is actually useless, and magic transformation is only useful for modern wizards. Because the ability to transform magic is something that ancient wizards are born with. Like Tonk's Metamorphmagus. She was actually very close. It is equivalent to a magical transformation at birth. Although the transformation is not complete. If the value of the Tree Shepherd's magic transformation is 0.5, Tonks is degraded version of the ability after magic transformation. As for the demigod wizards, their atavism is equivalent to the 3rd level of transformation. For example, Grindelwald can change his appearance like the Metamorphmagus, even though he is not particularly good at transfiguration. Penelope and Kate had no idea what Ryan was thinking about. They both began to hesitate. Because being a tree shepherd is too much trouble. And it's of little use to them. Forget it, Kate and I haven't even started the Phoenix Incarnation yet. Penelope sighed. That so-called magical transformation, does our Phoenix Incarnation have the same effect? Kate's round eyes rolled around and an idea flashed through her mind. Yes, good idea. Ryan patted his thigh. So much time has passed, but Penelope and Kate have not been able to enter Ryan's Phoenix Incarnation Plus after multiple evolutions due to their innate qualifications and acquired personality problems. And his Phoenix Incarnation Plus version does not have the effect of magical transformation, but only enhances the possibility of wizards learning the secret of Phoenix immortality through it. If you want to add the effect of magic transformation, you can only open up your innate power again and study and strengthen it. And isn't the enhanced version of the Phoenix Avatar the Moon's illusionary avatar? He could completely use his true body in the kingdom of God, the Moon, to activate the divine descent to help Kate and Penelope enter the Phoenix Incarnation. After all, which other believers have such unique conditions to be with God as they do, even the fusion of soul and body? Thinking of this, Ryan couldn't help but hug Kate in his arms and rubbed Kate's flat breasts frankly with his face. "What are you doing, little brat? Penelope is here." A touching blush immediately appeared on Kate's fair face, but her body collapsed skillfully and leaned on Ryan as if she had lost her bones. "You come again?" "But Penelope was shy and timid. She thought Ryan wanted to have dinner for two again, but she never agreed to this matter. Ryan raised his eyebrows and quickly said, "When did I need your consent?" "Ahem, I mean that's not what I meant." No, I mean what Kate just said inspired me. I thought of a better way than using the same batch of phoenix feathers as materials. I can definitely strengthen the phoenix avatar, and then use me as a transit point to get you started." "Then why didn't you do this before?" Penelope, the only sovereign person in the room besides Ryan, said dissatisfiedly. "She and Kate have been working hard for more than a month, and the result is still like this? No, you can't get in through me, the previous phoenix incarnation. That level is too weak. Once I help you build it, your body and mind will lose themselves under my power. If I had known that we could improve, I would have helped you get started. Wouldn't it be better if we could use the free time to do other things?" Ryan said. As he was talking, he felt something irritate his face and changed direction. "Well, this isn't how Kate was smoothed over. No, absolutely not. The lunar phase is the astronomical name for the part of the moon that is illuminated by the sun as seen from Earth. Waning crescent moon. Waning moon. The moon is invisible on the first day of the lunar month, and it is a full moon around the 15th or 16th of phase of the moon. Tonight is the disseminating moon, which directly translates to the spreading moon or the radiating moon, meaning the radiating energy in the void of space." A ripple began to stir from nothingness. It was a bright moon, but it was not full, as if it had been slightly bitten. As the tree shepherd's initiation ceremony was taking place at the burrow outside the Devon village of Outery St. Catchpole, a bright moon, gradually waning from its full state, hung high in the sky above Smith's Castle in Nottingham Forest. Below the waning gibbous moon, two figures, one tall and one short, sat cross-legged surrounded by 8 silver gleaming stoves. It's Kate and Penelope. The two of them were performing the initiation ceremony for the new Phoenix avatar. The phoenix feathers in the furnace all come from the same batch. Poems praising the phoenix were translated into magic runes and engraved on the soil inside the circle formed by the furnace. After an unknown amount of time, the feathers in the flame began to melt, just like a melting red candle. It flowed bit by bit along the silver-white furnace wall into the inscription on the ground. The earth shook. No, the ground did not shake. The void seemed to vibrate. Although the ground did not shake, the space around the two people seemed to vibrate. The equally incomplete moon began to separate from the bright moon in the sky, and the cold white moonlight became crowded. In an instant, the entire Smith Castle seemed to be covered in silver and changed color. Lord of the vast sea of stars, the inexhaustible Ouroboros, the incarnation of the moon that forever releases energy, the North Star that always points to the right direction. Please grant me the magic power of eternal life. Penelope and Kate opened their eyes and chanted at the same time. The magic runes representing the connection were faintly visible between their snow-white skin, and silver eyes like a bright moon appeared in their pupils. The snow-white moonlight was taken away. Just like a spider weaving a web, strands of moon-white silk threads were gradually absorbed by the 8 fires, and the red flames were gradually rendered moon-white. A light, graceful voice sounded from the void, and the bright moon faded into a red phoenix shining with silver light air, forming a silver-white inscription that was the same as the red inscription below. The shaking stopped. The castle has been restored to its original glory. The phoenix transformed into a slender and elegant figure. The inscription in the middle of the air disappeared. Silver spots of light began to shine in the red inscriptions surrounding Kate and Penelope. Magma slowly overflowed from the cracks. It began to connect with the surrounding inscriptions. Time seemed to start flowing backwards. The inscriptions on the ground were absorbed into the fiery red liquid like magma. As the last drop of liquid sank back into the bodies of the two, the skin of both of them also returned to its original flawless whiteness. The next second, Penelope and Kate disappeared, replaced by 2 phoenixes flapping their wings ready to fly. Chapter 525, Sharp Luna. This is a very strange house. The surface is black and smooth, like a whole cylinder made of black iron. It's just that this cylinder is too thick and too short. It looks like a rook in chess. And at this lazy time when everything was quiet and the morning sun had just risen, a short figure jumped out of this strange house. 5 o'clock. This short figure seemed to be very agile. She nimbly dodged the strange plants and died under the weeds. The steep slope could not hinder her steps. Normal people would walk slowly when going down the mountain, but she was different. With the help of gravity and her own strength, she walked faster and faster, until in the end only a white afterimage was left. If a muggle saw it, they would probably think it was a mountain elf. Normal person. More than 10 minutes was completed in just a few minutes for her. She stopped in front of a winding stream at the foot of the mountain and spoke to the air. "Come out, Ryan, I know you are here," the white-haired witch said firmly. However, the only response was a high-pitched and elegant bird song and a flash of sparks. The next second, a huge fiery red bird that seemed to be burning with flames appeared above the white-haired witch's head. "Are you the Phoenix of Ravenclaw?" The white-haired witch did not seem surprised. Although the words were questions, they were very plain, as if he had known it for a long time. This beautiful bird did not flap its wings, but pinned them to its sides. But it seemed to be unaffected by gravity and floated above the witch's head. In response to the witch's words, he just blinked his innocent, narrow eyes. He looked innocent and didn't understand. "Ryan, you can turn into a phoenix." The white-haired witch still looked calm. Combined with the ethereal tone, to be honest, he is very suitable to be a charlatan. "Luna, you are really suitable to be a charlatan." A clear young voice came from the bird's long beak. There was a flash of sparks, and a young man with black hair and silver eyes appeared next to the witch. Ryan's arms. She took out her magic wand, tapped the pebbles by the stream, and conjured up a net for catching goldfish. But her net is not made of paper and looks very strong. She waved her wand again, and a small stool appeared behind her. Then, she put away her wand, took out a bottle of lavender liquid like beet juice, and handed it to Ryan. "Here, Gordigan tea. I don't understand why you didn't choose divination. You have a talent for it." Ryan skillfully took what Luna called tea. During the summer vacation, he had already gotten used to this strange drink. But he was very confused. In the original world line, Luna had chosen a divination class in her 3rd grade. Why was it like this now? But the next second, Ryan slapped his forehead in annoyance. Because Luna's irrational intuition took effect again. Ryan didn't say anything, but Luna, who was sitting on a small stool and playing in the stream with a small fishing net, spoke. "It's better for me to be a little more confused now. In addition to Hermione, you also know Leinster and Clearwater, right?" Luna said, looking at the colorful ballfish flopping in the stream without glancing at Ryan. "Merlin's beard." Ryan regretted it. Although he stopped, Ryan still couldn't control himself and made Luna drink the magic potion. It can only be said that he stopped, but not completely. After drinking the potion, Luna could almost guess what Ryan was thinking about her. Now he went a step further and guessed Kate and Penelope, who he had no thought of just now. Even in his phoenix state, his identity was revealed. The reason why I adopted the appearance of a phoenix today was entirely because Kate and Penelope had learned the phoenix incarnation plus version last night. The long-lost memories were brought back to him and he was about to rub against little Luna in the form of a phoenix again. But it ended up shooting itself in the foot. Was a little suspicious whether Luna guessed it based on the time when the Ravenclaw phoenix appeared and her casual interactions with Kate and Penelope. It's not because of this. Luna's ethereal voice made Ryan's heart skip a beat. What the hell? This is almost like mind reading. It's not mind reading. Luna's words began to contain a hint of smile. "I was wrong. I came with you to catch colorful ballfish today. I shouldn't have teased you." Ryan squatted down dejectedly. When his butt was 1 foot off the ground, a small stool like Luna's emerged from the air. He stretched out his right hand, and a fishing net similar to Luna's appeared in his hand. "Your magic is amazing." Luna was moved by Ryan's unpretentious spellcasting. Ryan raised the corners of his mouth. "Your uncle is still your uncle." After a brief discussion about which books he needed to read and which spells needed to be cast at what level in order to perform the magic he had just performed. In the following time, the two of them stood shoulder to shoulder, holding fishing nets and casually waving them in the stream. If you don't know, you might think they are fishing. But even with such an inefficient fishing method, 2 or 3 unlucky ballfish still came to the door on their own. However, the two men flipped their wrists and gently released a fish. This is how Ryan and Luna fish. It's more like sitting together and clearing our minds than fishing. Luna's father, who loves eating pomfret so much that he has a whole book of pomfret recipes, can only eat other things instead. In fact, This can be seen from Gordigan tea because these goldfish were used to catch colorful ballfish before Ryan came. It is the best bait to lure ballfish in Luna's family past. Gordigan tea was a drink her father developed after realizing he had too many painted fish and needed to get them under control when catching ballfish. There was no Gordigan tea at home when the sun gradually rose and completely appeared from the horizon. Ryan was about to leave temporarily to avoid Luna and her father. Luna suddenly asked, "Do you have something important to tell me today? I have two choices here, since you are also interested in plants. To the Phoenix Incarnation and the Tree Shepherd." Ryan waved his hand, and two booklets appeared on Luna's white thighs. As if he was afraid that Luna didn't understand, Ryan continued to add, "The Phoenix Incarnation is the magic I just used, which can transform into a phoenix. The Tree Shepherd cultivates a tree in his body and forms a contract with it, gaining abilities derived from the tree in its own transformation. There is no doubt that the Tree Shepherd is an enhanced version of Lion. This Phoenix Incarnation is also a castrated version of Ryan's enhanced version. The castrated part is the incarnation. This means that even if Luna mastered it, she could only transform into a phoenix. She couldn't have imagined that while Ryan was accompanying her, he was also accompanying Hermione, Kate and Penelope. Maybe. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.